For those of you that don't know me very well, I'm a big music guy. I consume music I haven't heard pretty much every week in the span of 1 to 2 to 3 albums, if I have the budget to do it. So this week, Sleep Token released their fourth studio album, Even in Arcadia. I've been pretty excited about the release of this one. 10-song record, clocking in at 57 minutes. They released 3 singles, Emergence, Caramel, and wow, the last one is slipping my mind. But anyways, they were all great songs. So checked out the album on the way to work yesterday. Liked it for the most part. Gave it a second listen on the way home. Liked it a little bit more. And as I'm now kind of going back through it slowly, song to song, like I was driving to the grocery store this morning, only had time for like 1.5 songs, then had like 1.5 on the way home. I'm starting to appreciate it more and more. I'm not sure where it'll really rank for me out of all their albums. The last album, Take Me Back to Eden, was really, really good, and I played the heck out of that thing 2 years ago when it came out. So yeah, we'll see where Even in Arcadia ranks as time goes on, and I'm sure I'll give it a few more listens to really see if it grows on me and whatnot. So welcome to episode 8 of Who's That Driver? I'm your host, Zach Rogers, and this week we've got a guest who is a big fan of the number 8 in motorsports, Blake Warren. Blake, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me on today, Zach. I appreciate you asking me to come on to the show. I've enjoyed listening to the podcast thus far, and kind of hoped I would be number 8 on the show.
Yeah, right on. It was going to be probably between you and another number 8 fanatic I know, Cody Luke, but you're the one who gets number 8. So as we look at the past week in racing at Texas was a little crazy, right? We had another chaotic Cup race. What did you think of the Cup race and the weekend overall?
Actually, truth be told, I missed out on the entire race weekend for that matter. Texas U has kind of shifted away from being one of my more favored tracks, so sadly enough, I really don't have much input.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, personally, I was saying as an icebreaker for last week's episode, as that one was recorded on a Sunday before the Cup race. In the truck race and the Xfinity race, they had drivers clipping the grass in the quad oval, tearing up their stuff, causing wrecks. And, you know, we hadn't seen that since Junior did it. What was it, like 2014, I think he did it.
Yep.
Yeah, and the Cup race completely destroyed his car, and I think the windshield of, it was either Jimmy or somebody behind them. Like, just, and that was at full speed. That wasn't a restart wreck. That was a full speed moment. And they were talking about it on Door Bumper Clear this week, if they should remove it and like put turf in there or pave it. And it's like, yeah, just put turf down there. Just do what Charlotte did and replace the grass with turf. That way, if someone does clip it, like, they're not going to destroy their whole race car. It sounds like maybe it's more just a problem with the trucks and Xfinity cars because the splitters are so low there for those series still. The Cup cars, right, with the Gen 7, the front splitter's kind of up a little more than it was on the Gen 6 because of the air intake and however that system works. So it's not really a problem, they think, in the Cup car, but probably better safe than sorry. They're only going there once a year right now anyway. But I would just say, why do, again, age-old discussion, we don't need grass at racetracks. Like, just get rid of it. Like, get rid of it. Just put turf there. I mean, if it's a road course, like, that's fine. I get it. Like, it's part of the beauty of a course on the road courses. But for, like, an oval, like, we don't need it. Just get rid of it. It's just bad news. So, and then me personally, racing this past week at Fast, I'll tell you what, Blake, I have said this to quite a few people. I am cursed online at Texas Motor Speedway. I don't know what it is. I don't know why I have like the worst luck ever at this track, but I just do. Recently, we've been racing Texas World a little bit at some leagues, such as Fuel, Robert Kubat's league. We ran it last year. I've been winning races at Texas World, no problem. I haven't had anything happen at Texas World. But whenever we go to Texas Motor Speedway, there's always something. So, for example, 4 years ago, I was leading an open setup race at Bomb Squad. Pretty much had the race under control, just had to hit my marks. Caution comes out, 9 to go. Pit strategy galore. I restarted like third or fourth. Was still in shot to win after the green, after the car in front of me spun his tires and went off track, turning it into a one-lap shootout. But the guy behind me got a better run, went into turn one. He got loose under me, and that just booted me right up to the wall. And then going into turn three, someone else got tight under me and just straight up wrecked me. So that race went away from me. Last year in Robert's League, I had a good lead. We had another late race yellow. There was a little strategy. I took two to try to maintain position. And on the restart, it was single file restart. I got a good jump. And I was moving to the inside of the guy in front of me. And I literally thought I was good to go. And then I was just close enough to this guy that I hit the netcode portion of his left quarter panel. And it spun me right around and wrecked me in front of everybody. So that happened. So then Sunday night, I'm thinking, what's going to go wrong? Well, at first, everything was going great. I'm starting to think, I qualified well. Let's just put the little rundown of how this race went. Qualified well. We had a quick yellow early. I pit for gas only. It was like lap 3 or 4. The stages were like 30, 30, 40. So I was trying to pit for gas and see how to play the stages. Or actually, no, it was 40, 40, 37. Never mind. So I needed gas to get to the end of the stage, right? Because I want stage points, playoff point, if possible. So we have the caution lap 4, lap 3, 4, pit for gas, came out, didn't really lose anything. Everyone mostly pit for fuel. Go like 2, 3 more laps green, another caution. I'm thinking, okay, we get like the set we start on plus 5 sets. I can risk losing a set here. So I put tires on it, restarted at practically the back of it was like a 12 car field. Made my way through the field pretty quickly, got up to the lead, and the race started going green. Won the stage, got my playoff point, then had my pit stop, and then I'm looking at it, and it was going to turn into a fuel race. If it had kept going green, it was going to be really tight. We needed to save about 3 to 4 laps per run to make it, because it was about 73 to go when I pit. As you know, like if you were to run it out right, Blake, it's just like 32, 33 laps, depending on how much fuel you're burning.
Yeah.
So I'm clutching away, doing my thing. With 3 to go in the second stage, it's looking like I'm going to make it. I'm going to pit with about 36, 35 to go. And I might have to save a little bit in the last stint, and then I should be good. And it was pretty much going to be between me and Joshua Moyers. Moyers was close enough to me and had been saving gas. And he was looking like he was going to be my closest competition, because when we all pit on the lap 8 or 9 yellow, everybody else that had pit only did fuel only. The only other driver that had used the set was Randall Coleman. Randall had pit the yellow before because he was the yellow, so he had to put tires on. So when I drove away from the field at the end of the first stage, it was pretty much just me and Randall. And then Randall dropped off a little bit, and by the end of that run, when everyone started pitting, I was able to go longer. And I had about like a 3 or 4 second gap. So Moyers was the closest one to me. Jeffrey Goodpaster was also looking good on fuel, but he was like another 10 seconds behind Josh, so I wasn't really concerned about him. But so lap 77, 78, I got about 4 or 5 laps of gas left. I hit the clutch going into turn 1, and when I take my hand off the clutch, 4th gear is gone.
Oh, God.
It is just gone. Just like that. Pop the clutch in,
Just
pop
like
the clutch
that.
out, and boom, no more 4th gear. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. I am cursed at Texas Motor Speedway. It doesn't matter what I do. I can lead all the laps in the world there, but I just something crazy happens, and it's always when I'm in the lead. Funny enough, the last time I had fourth gear randomly break on me like that, just like being in fourth gear, I was riding under yellow in the lead at Texas. And I was
Hmm.
riding in fourth gear and it just going off into turn one into caution. Oh, hey, fourth gear doesn't work anymore. Just like that. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Because as you know, Blake, we will break gears randomly when we're shifting. Like if you shift up or down, like you might break a gear, right? Like on a road course. But
Right.
you
Right.
you never expect to just lose a gear riding in it.
Yeah, not necessarily. Yeah.
And then of course, so I ran to make it even funnier, I ran Maverick, which was at Sonoma Tuesday.
Mm.
Started on the pole, green flag race, 37 laps. Talk about exhausting because we ran the carousel layout. I didn't break a single gear in that whole race. So, like, go figure.
Yeah.
But, anyway, that's enough of my weekend in the past online. What did your past online week look like?
Uh, you're gonna have to give me a minute to think about this. I think as to how it all has gone is I've run on Fuel's Tuesday series, Wednesday series just finished up a while back, so we're on hiatus for right now, which means that Friday I've been running Fuel's Sportsman division. Saturday nothing is really going on, and Sunday I've been running. It is called International Stock Car Championship, which is hosted by Crystal Bennett. And all we did there this past week was a showdown race at Bowman Gray Stadium for the Clash, essentially. And I'll just simply say this, both the road course for Sportsman did not go well, and Bowman Gray did not go well. So nothing really. Pretty much by the end of Bowman Gray, I was just looping around on the interior of the track. Set the fastest lap, but was 7 to 10 laps down or whatever. Nothing worth doing anything there.
Dang. Yeah, so the loop back to Texas, when I broke fourth gear, there were like 3 laps to go in the stage, right? So I was like, well, I'll
Right,
just limp it to the end of the stage in third gear. Moyers was close enough; he was gonna get me, so he won the stage, right? But
right.
everybody else had already started pitting because they had pit a few laps before the last run. So I was like, I'll just run it out third gear here. Like I ran out of gas, literally finishing the stage, so I got 9 points at least for the stage, but then I just pit and I was like, should I keep going? And I was like, yeah, I'll keep going. You never know what can happen, right? So I ran it around in third gear. I got lapped 3 or 4 times. The oil temperature was pegged out at like 250, 240 or something like that. Just because it was
Mm-hmm.
constant, like 8,500, 9,000 rev with 60 tape. Um, so eventually it blew up, but it was still running, so it didn't bring out a yellow. So I pit thinking, yeah, they'll probably be done. They started fixing it. Took them like 2 minutes to fix it. They sent me back out there. The performance hadn't changed at all because all I really still had was third gear, right? Like if you had fourth
Right.
gear, then yeah, you would have noticed the performance change. But all I still had was third gear. So go back out there. There's like 8 to go. Temperature goes right back up. This time it only took like 4 laps. I'm surprised I went like 15 to 20 the first time, but this time it took 4 laps. It blew up again, and then I was just, I was like just sitting on pit road without retiring, waiting for the race to be official, just so I could say I didn't DNF.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, to to kind of bulk that into majority of what you were saying, you're certainly snake bit at Texas. How often, from your perspective, because I do this a lot myself, how often do you just go into a race and just say, I'm going to start this race, I'm going to run this race, and I'm just going to finish and just see how it goes? I have no aspirations to win. I have no aspirations. I don't expect that I'm going to get a top five. but we're just gonna go out, we're gonna run the race, and we'll just see what happens. If we DNF, we DNF. If we finish, we finish.
So see, that's what's funny is that's literally the mindset I had for Maverick Tuesday because I know a lot of those guys are kind of inexperienced. They're learning the game. That I don't know how
Mm.
many. I don't know many of them. Like I went into the field Tuesday night and I was like, man, I don't know half these guys. Like I haven't raced against half these guys. But so I'm expecting maybe someone tries to get out of the way or let me by in a bad spot. I might get wrecked. Like, and I streamed it right, and then so
Right.
I was just looking for a good time, and I was like, yeah, if I finish top three, I finish top three. Like I knew I had the pace because it was a road course to get a good finish. I just had to watch out, and there were like two or three moments where like if I wasn't as cautious as I was, I definitely would have got involved in something. But yeah, that was the exact mindset I had. Is like I went into the race like, yeah, I just want to I finished where I finished, but then by like five to go, I'm like, no caution, please, because I had like a 50-second lead. So then at that point, at the end of the race, then I'm like, okay, like, yeah, now I want to win because like I've practically driven myself to that point. But going into it, like, yeah, I was like, I don't really, if we wreck out early, we wreck out early, you know.
Yeah.
So of course I
Yeah.
didn't break any gears in that race.
Yeah. Of course you didn't.
When you don't care, like you're saying, when you don't care is usually when things go good. But when you care a lot is when things go bad. Like, also for fast, there was a streak of races where I had won three in a row. Last season, I did that like twice, but
Hmm.
I never got to win four in a row. And something weird happened twice last season. Like, what would have been a fourth win in a row at Nashville Super Speedway last year. I chose to watch the end of the Cup race, got no practice, no nothing, still got second. And then there was a race at the end of the year at California where I went to pass for the lead through the final corner on Moyers. Moyers got tight, smacked the wall off of four, and I was just close enough to him coming off the corner that he bounced off the wall and got me out of shape, and we both wrecked. And then third place drove by and won. If I had given myself like 3 more inches low, just knowing he's going to hit the wall and get slower, I would have won, and that would have been like four in a row. Um, so then this year, I'm trying to remember where we were at. Oh boy, like the races just kind of blend together at this point. Let me check here real quickly. So I had won three in a row. Oh, Martinsville. So Martinsville, I knew I had a good shot because I had won there last year in the fall. So I dominated early, but Jack Merkel started to figure the track out as we went. He ended up getting by me late, and then we had like a few quick yellows, and I was trying my best to get back to him to try to fight him for the win, and then I just kind of I couldn't get back to him, and I ended up overshooting the entry in the three, and Randall got into me because I came back down. But so if I had won that, that would have been four in a row. And I like, so of course, like I really wanted to win it and it just didn't pan out. So, that's the way it goes.
Yeah. Generally speaking, that is how it goes.
All right, so before we dive any deeper into NR 2003, I first want to ask what got you into motorsports, who your first favorite driver was, which I think that might be a given to a lot of people who know you, but, and you can answer that anyway. And then your favorite form of motorsports, which also might be a given.
Okay, so when I first got into racing, so this is actually a pretty wholesome story. Um, this is a little bit recounted off of just prior storytelling and everything like that, but from what I can kind of tell, my dad was watching TV one day and started flipping through the channels. Don't know what he was originally watching, don't know what he was trying to get to, and all of a sudden a NASCAR race comes up. And I mean, I'm talking like maybe I'm 4 years old at this time, so like 1998 roughly or so, 98, 99. I tell him to stop and I start watching this race. Now, I don't know where they were at. I don't know who was in the field. I don't even know what was going on. But something just mesmerized me about all these bright, shiny cars going around a racetrack. Um, as kids, most of us end up getting Hot Wheels and everything like that. So, you got your Camaros, you got your Fords, you got all these different types of crazy vehicles. But I think that was like the very first time that I saw a purpose-built vehicle that had a incentive of we're not out here just driving, we're out here racing, and we are built specifically for this. And there were a lot of early on schemes that still to this day are my favorite from childhood. I love the 44 Hot Wheels car that was ran between 97 and even in 2000. That scheme was very crazy looking, very a big departure from the original design, but looks awesome. The 94 Bill Elliott McDonald's car, the 24 Rainbow Warriors Jeff Gordon car, just all of these machines and how they were designed, they all just looked fantastic. So, although I consider my initiation into NASCAR in about August of 1999. I do have a news clipping from like earlier in the season at the second Rockingham race that shows that I did start watching this sport earlier. So, 4 to 5 years old, right around that time, just I got into the sport. I don't really know what drew me in, but it was just fantastic. Um, I think the second question was favorite driver, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is where I'm going to throw everyone for a curveball on. My favorite driver growing up, starting out in the sport, was Jeff Gordon. I was a big Jeff Gordon fan. I'm talking diecast, I'm talking hats, I'm talking jackets, I'm talking shirts. Even at one point, I had a fire suit, a kid's fire suit with a Jeff Gordon helmet associated with it. So I was a big Jeff Gordon fan. And then right around the time of my 8th birthday, probably because Gordon was winning so often, it just made the sport kind of boring. I don't know what really drew me in, but I became a Dale Earnhardt Jr. fan from there on. So, but yeah, so surprisingly, Jeff Gordon, favorite driver right off the get go.
That's very interesting because I think I might have said it on another episode. I believe myself too. I don't really remember, but I believe I was a Gordon fan first myself, and then became like a Junior fan, and later like a Tony fan, a Truex Junior fan. Like, but so it's interesting hearing you say that like you were also like a Gordon fan at first, and then you like later became a Junior fan.
Yeah.
And then so the last part of that question, your favorite form of motorsports, I would assume is NASCAR.
Generally speaking, yeah, NASCAR would be my favorite. I do have a strong affinity for the 2000s era, like we're talking 2002 to 2006 years of the Indy Racing League. Um, the I may be spinning off into a deeper question at a later point, but my family and I used to go to Kentucky Speedway a lot growing up as a child. We had season tickets for many years, so my introduction to the IndyCar series was actually through the Kentucky Speedway race in 2003 and 2005, not the Indianapolis 500 of all things. I was probably aware that it existed and everything like that, to the equivalency that, the Monaco Grand Prix happens, but they're two different such worlds apart from what I was interested in and everything. Um, so yeah, NASCAR is primary, and I do have a strong affinity for IndyCar. It is hard to try and keep up with the schedule though because of the long breaks. So there's that.
Yeah, that was one thing that I've always struggled to get into IndyCar with is they don't have quite the long schedule that NASCAR and even now Formula One has like a pretty good schedule. So it's harder to like really like stay into it just because of all the, like the breaks they have and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I can't think of what maybe was the first time I saw an IndyCar race. It might have actually been Homestead. I don't really
Mm-hmm.
remember. I feel like I saw a flat Homestead IndyCar race at one point, like growing up, but I might just be dreaming or something or imagining things. Um, But yeah, so we'll forward that down now into how and when, or I guess better off asking, first when and then how you got into NASCAR racing 2003.
So I'll give the how because that story is interesting in and of itself. And we'll go into the deeper when, at least into the league stuff from there.
Okay.
So how? So I was watching YouTube and everything like that later in high school. We're talking like 2012, 2013, junior, senior area. Um, and I just saw this racing game that kept popping up, and it was all those crash compilations, Um, yeah, usually to like Three Doors Down, uh, Fingers 11, or whatever. Like just all these crash compilations. And what was crazy to me was like, okay, so I recognize these cars, and they're like from the 1990s. It's the Cup 90 mod. But wait, what's this? Like, how in the world are they running Superbirds here? Like, it's the same game? What in the world? And I kind of look at it a little bit to the similar line of like Grand Prix 4 with its modding scene and everything like that. Just the fact that there was this game out there and something that I had been wanting to see, especially on the console side, because I grew up on the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 1 and everything like that. It was like, why in the world can they not build a NASCAR game that is essentially a best of historical game that allows you to race different eras of cars and different sets of drivers and different types of tracks and like work your way up from like let's say the 1949 season all the way to roughly about that current period. And this is also during the time when we're not really getting NASCAR games either. EA lost the license and everything on the console side. We don't get some racing games. The Technics games are kind of iffy there. But yeah, so I kind of knew about the game in and of itself, but didn't really know how to get it. So, or really didn't know much about it. How I got it though, I did not really realize that this game was abandonware. So, and not really having any IT experience at that time, I didn't want to give my laptop a virus. So, I got a temporary job at Goodwill uh, Industries for a summer job. And with my very first paycheck, which was like, I don't know, like $120 or so, I went onto eBay. I bought a full box copy of NR 2003 for like $103, and then I got myself a Dale Earnhardt Jr. Oreo Ritz hat that I had lost from childhood that found again now, and went ahead and purchased the game. I had no idea that the game could have been so easily acquired online and everything like that, and it just took chunks of learning how to do different things of it with it. So I was playing the game just offline on a PS3 controller, a Toshiba laptop from like 2017 or so, and that was all I was doing for the league style of stuff. This is an interesting story in and of itself. Shane Sides, who was the creator, admin, everything of the IMRC league. He and I became friends because he and I were both on the Technics NASCAR forums. I can't really remember what we had necessarily like talked about or what kind of got us, to be buddy buddy and everything like that. Um, but he started inviting me to like, hey, do you want to do my offline league and everything like that? Yeah, sure. And then later on, Shane ended up inviting me to do a Gran Turismo 5 league with him. So weirdly, I got into online racing through the PlayStation 3 with Gran Turismo before I even figured out NR. Ran some series there, everything else like that. And then by the time around 20, it says here 2016, because apparently around when I first started racing, I think at that time I was still using a laptop for the most part. Um, I was finally getting things together and prepared and ready to do online stuff with it on. All this time, like I said, I'm playing it on a laptop and just doing offline stuff, trying different weird ass tracks and everything like that. And it's like with the with Shane's advocating for me, that was what started getting me into leagues and everything like that. Transitioning from doing offline stuff and just goofing around, something fun to do, to, oh, there's a whole online scene here and people actually do this stuff. So, um, to answer that question, maybe it was more like closer to the early 2016. I think my very first league race was a IndyCar event at Homestead, Miami, of all places, in Kenny Myatt's league,
Oh boy.
using I think the DW12 mod.
Yeah, I think that
Um,
was out by then. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I have a whole sheet in front of me just of like different highlights and information. But probably like the biggest point that I was actually starting to get focused in on this was there was a race at the IORL Indy Lights division that was run by Zach Buchanan, and I made my debut there at Texas Motor Speedway on August 26th of 2016. So effectively, since August 2016, I have been somewhere involved and around doing some type of league racing on and off.
Well,
Uh, yeah.
that's interesting because, funny enough, I thought you had been racing online before me, and I started like November 2015. I actually thought you had already been racing. So I guess
No.
you just kind of, that's like one of the things you just kind of forget when you've been in the community for a long time is like when certain people started to race against you and stuff, because like I could have
Yeah.
sworn like a bunch of people were already racing like before I even started. So that's a good
Well,
history reminder that that is not the case for you.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I look at it a little bit of the way of this too is that to me, I've kind of been a roaming gypsy throughout most of this experience. Like, I will go along and I will tag along with people that I've either raced against or been friends with for a long time. So, like, starting out, it's like Shane knows these people. Here's a league that you could probably get started in. Get some ideas and everything like that as to what's involved. I trust these people. They'll treat you well too. It's funny enough how I first met Jessica Shelton for that matter. Um, I yeah, to me, like I've always followed my closest friends, and it's only been over like the last few years that I've kind of branched out, and it's like, okay, I like what this league is doing. Okay, some of my friends they're not racing in all anymore. They've switched over to iRacing, so a little bit of the I'm too stubborn to leave in on, and it's much less stressful. It's what I enjoy.
Yeah, right on. I agree. We can talk about the whole iRacing thing a little bit. I have it kind of down my list, but to circle
Yeah, yeah.
back to Shane and then like his offline league and stuff. That was like how I actually knew who you were before you started racing online because of Shane's offline league.
Really.
Yes, so I finally got a YouTube account of my own in like it was either early 2013 or yeah, so it was like spring 2013 and I started doing my own offline thing with like an MP3 player. And then
Right.
around spring 2014, I had enough content that I started talking to like Alan Cavernero through a forum
Mm-hmm.
and like Dylan Young through a forum and stuff. And then I had joined DWSR Shane's League,
Yep.
and
Yep. Yep.
I joined. I forget what team I was on first, but I remember around the time a few seasons, and then like towards the end, I was with Michael Block's team.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually, I think I had my own team with Alan that kind of fizzled out for different reasons. But I remember watching you react to your championship
Yes.
in sometime it was in sometime in 2014,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that was your driver, Charlie Fibrosis. That was your offline
Yes,
driver's name.
yes.
So
So
I knew you because of that, because I watched your reaction video.
yeah, so it's actually kind of funny that you mentioned that because I was gonna bring it up myself. It's funny. I started my YouTube channel in February of 2013, so our YouTube stuff is not actually all that far removed from one another, which is so weird. That's funny. Um, you had DJ on a few weeks ago, and well, I don't know how much DJ has actually divulged his real name. I'm not gonna do that. Um, the whole idea behind the Charlie Fibrosis was I was trying to get uh name recognition at least associated with that to the YouTube channel, and a little bit in the same line of DJ's thinking, oh hey, people don't exactly know what my real name is. Let me put up a moniker that can give me some sense of protection and safety. And probably within about maybe 2 years, because I did run under Charlie Fibrosis as a driver in NR for a
Mm-hmm.
while. I eventually dropped that because it's like these are just my friends. Like, what does it exactly matter that they know who I am? Yeah, and I've gone by Blake my whole entire life. That's going to be a lot easier. Surprisingly, that there's actually far more Blakes in this community than I realized, but for me at least, that at least made more sense. So, but yeah, I look back on that YouTube video and it's like it's a little cringy, but it's a wholesome cringy, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah. I have plenty of those, I'm sure, on my channel. Um, all the offline commentaries and stuff. Like, you do it so much that you reach a point where you really have an understanding of like how you're supposed to commentate and
Hmm.
whatnot. As you know, like you've been doing online races. We did we just did Mondays of Thunder the other week there at Kentucky for their
Yeah,
finale. So the more you do it, the more you pick up on like what's good, what's like what you shouldn't do, and like I'm sure there's a couple videos where like if I went back and listened to myself, it'd be like, oh, that's just I can't listen to myself, especially the mic quality was awful back
yeah,
then, because
yeah.
you used whatever you had.
You used whatever you had. I know that I had like a Logitech headset that just like I think I went through like three of them, and then I went through Turtle Beach headsets, and they also broke rather quickly. So yeah, yeah. The things that you do when you have no deep income and you're not able to really afford the higher end stuff. Not yet, at least.
Right. Yeah, so that Indy Lights race, how did that pan out? Do you
So
recall?
here's the crazy thing. And this will kind of there's a few things that I actually wanted to talk in general about because I would say that my time in NR has kind of been a little polarizing in certain extents. And I will go ahead and fess up to it, and I will give some reasonable answers as to what my headspace was at that time. So that Indy Lights race actually went very, very well. I still have the video up on my channel, though it is buried, probably due to low views and just low editing quality. But I ended up finishing fourth in that race, and it was insane because we're all like jumbled up together, maybe about like only half a car length at certain points separating between us. And you don't want to hit someone in front of you, especially in an Indy car. The hitbox is going to get detected and someone's going to go flying into the catch fence. So I went back and I looked at that video and it's like, okay, I see why I was letting out here because I don't want to accidentally slide up and hit someone. And it's like, also, oh wait, I could have made a move here that would have gone and done this, or done a really good race. The crazy thing is looking at it all the way back in 2016, I was racing against Shane, I was racing against Cody, I was racing against Dejan Weeks, I was racing against Seth Cole. I'm very certain that Zach Buchanan was there. Like, I ran against people who I would not race again with until a few years later going into their leagues. Like I did not know who Seth Cole was, but he was there and he was racing and he was doing well. Um, but yeah, at the end of it going, I think Shane ended up winning. Cody and one other person, I think Dejan, I think they were all in like a Team Penske type pack. And I was running the 83 Novalog Novaflex pen Charlie Kimball car. And I think had I had a couple of extra laps available and probably more of my mentality today, I probably could have gotten at least second, maybe one with some push from behind. But yeah, went out very first race effectively and got a fourth place finish, which is why we're going to run into problems when we eventually get into stock cars.
Oh boy. Um.
So
So after following that first race, you what were you on to at the time? Were you on controller or did you already have a wheel?
I've actually only used wheel for the entirety that I have done online racing. I went from a Driving Force GT to a G27, I believe. Yeah, G27 to uh, a Thrustmaster T300, and then most recently and probably for good, I switched over to a Moza R5.
Okay.
Um,
I know Robert Kubat uses a Moza.
yeah, yeah. I've only been using this Moza for maybe like 7 to 8 months, and I really, really like the design of it. Something I actually have to give props to Thrustmaster on is with that T300. The fact that you could hot swap wheels without really much muss and fuss was really, really cool. And it's part of the reason why it's like, okay, I'm switching over to direct drive, but the fact that that ability is integrated within this ecosystem, this is awesome. I can switch from a stock car rim to an IndyCar rim to whatever else I need. So, uh, yeah, sorry. I felt like you had a question there, but I didn't fully go on.
No, no, that was pretty much the question. Yeah, like so you started on
Okay.
wheel, you
Okay.
moved through wheels, etc.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever? When did you like? Have you found a like set amount like settings that you like, or have you always tinkered with your settings? Has it changed? Like,
I
what's the deal with the settings, like degrees of rotation and all that?
So I think that I actually did at one point try racing with like 360 or probably even the stock full 900 at one point. I've had a lot of help through various people. Shane, Dylan Schwallenberg, Cole Eastwood, like all of those guys have given Will Goss too. They've all given me some type of advice to try and get better and figure out what we're doing wrong. Um, Here in a minute, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the stock car stuff because it is embarrassing, but it is important to talk about for how we get to today. Um, Pretty much for me, I run zero on anything regarding the throttle or brake, like within the game settings, that is.
Mm-hmm.
So that I think it's the throttle input, brake input, momentum, whatever it
Yeah, the
is.
momentums. Yeah, those are really only
Yeah,
needed
yeah,
for keyboard or controller people, in my opinion.
yeah. I don't mess with that. I think I have my steering linearity set to about 70%. The game kind of feels like if you crack it to 100, it's like a little bit too sensitive or it
Oh yeah,
overreacts.
oh yeah, it is. It's just twitchy, twitchy.
70%, yeah, 70% feels about as 1 to 1 or close enough to it that the input on my wheel is pretty equivalent to how it's going to turn in the game itself. Um, I run 270 degrees because that seems to be like the game's favored spot, or like at the time the game was coded and everything like that. Like that was what wheels could do. So I just run that, and then I use Joy to Key to do all of my key bindings or as many as I can. I'm not reaching across my wheel, trying to hit all the function keys and everything like that. And at some point, I do need to map a whisper key because I leave my mic open all the time. So,
Yeah, yeah. I
but
use
yeah,
anti-micro myself. It basically works the same as Joy to Key.
yeah, I remember you mentioning that a few weeks ago. So I'll have to check it out. All right, so let's go ahead and I want to go ahead and get into some of the difficult stuff here. So I want to put this into frame and perspective because it also kind of leads into like a little bit of rivalries thing, and it's just a lot to explain. So from that time when I was running an Iowa L, I pretty much exclusively ran Indy cars. I only ran that division, and I really didn't run stock cars all that much. So all of that time, all of those months that I was running in the IndyCar stuff, I did not have a feel for how the stock car would go. So when IMRC came about and it's like, oh, hey, Blake, would you like to come out and race, at Homestead, Miami in the Gen 6 BR15 mod and have some fun there? I could not figure out how to drive it. And unfortunately, I ended up in many cases self spinning, getting twitchy loose and pushing up into someone, outright crashing, like just everything. My brain could not recognize or understand that, oh, yeah, the IndyCar is extensively lighter. The IndyCar also has extensively more downforce. There's a whole different physics set associated with this that is required to like know as to how you do it. Oh, your braking distance, your stopping distance is different from an Indy car to a stock car. Having so much competitive time in the Indy car left me woefully underprepared, and in many cases, I got parked or I got relegated to a junior division. I'd finished many races like 3 or more laps down. And I know that I got into people and probably pissed them off. Um, just because of not having that sense of practice or having that sense of feel. And worse off, not really knowing how to get better. Where it kind of changes up and at least is for the better is eventually IOL dissolved, at least on the NR side. They switched over to iRacing. And then I started focusing more on, okay, well, that series was the only thing that was running Indy cars. Let's go ahead and try to run stock cars and see where we can get there. It has been a very long path, and I'm very thankful that there are a handful of people that, you know, well, I may have roughed up on the track accidentally or so. They've been great friends to me since then or through it all. Will Goss is one of my best friends. Cody's a great friend. Shane's wonderful. Like all those hard lessons learned and everything like that from that transition has led to a lot more happiness today, so to speak. And thankfully, some better competitive outings by me. So,
Yeah, right on. That's what it's all about. Like you learn, you grow, you know, not just in your skill set, but your mental preparation or just your mentality overall. We all go
like,
through it. As you know, Blake, I've had quite the 10 years here in this community for good and bad and really bad reasons. So it is what it is, and you go through the motions.
yeah. And this was actually something that I wanted to talk to you at some point about. So, um, there was a point where I know that you and Emmanuel Hartnett were rather frustrated with me, and I understand why. But allow me to set the clock back. We were running IBOS at Lime Rock, and I think that we were running the pavement. And I can't really remember what necessarily was going on per se with me, but like the peak moment that I know that I had frustrated you was up at the top of the hill, right before you go into the last turn, where it's that big swooping right-hander. I was severely off pace, like probably at least a few laps down. You're coming up behind me, and my brain is thinking the inside lane is going to be the best one to take, or the outside lane is going to be the best to take. I'm trying to get out of the way of the leaders, but I know I held you up, and you got so upset with me. Understandably so. But I've never raced at Lime Rock for one, and it's like, Wait, the line that I'm taking, wouldn't it be more out of the way than the opposite? Like, isn't the intended line to be more outside and more inside? And I'm doing the opposite of that? Like it's that type of stuff.
Yeah, I don't actually remember this at all, so it's interesting that you bring it up. Yeah, kind of vaguely maybe kind of remember like maybe you being in the way once or twice, but I like offhand do not remember this at all.
Okay, okay. Yeah, yeah. It's all of those little things. It's like being in the way but not trying to be in the way. Trying to give people room to get by, but also not trying to wreck and spin yourself out. And I kind of hold a close rule to myself. If I'm gonna end up one lap down, or if I'm close enough that I can maybe try to rally back and get my lap back, I will race aggressively. I will race very defensively. If I go two or more laps down, oh, I'll let everybody by. Like at that point, there's nothing that I'm going to be able to do to be able to make up that speed or distance unless we get cautions and lucky dogs, and then reset from there. Like, okay, what did I screw up in the first round of racing? How do we fix this on the second half of it? You know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like no one wants to go a lap down. But you also when you know you're racing the leader, you know, if he's got no one close to him, I say, you know, nothing wrong with like just, you know, running the outside and just trying to keep him at bay that way. If he's got somebody right behind him, you know, depending when it is in the race, you're better off just letting them go. But I get it. You know, you don't want no one wants to go a lap down, and especially you don't want to go 2 laps down.
No.
So yeah, lap down car etiquette is something I think is always a challenge to know like when is it okay for me to race the leader, when is it not okay for me to race the leader. And then depending who the leader is, you may or may not care. You may just be like, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna race the hell out of the guy because he races the hell out of me or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
you take
Definitely.
it all into
Definitely.
to account.
Generally speaking, I try to have the mentality of, and I don't know if it's like a combination of a driving style of like maybe like a Jimmy Beans or some sort, and then like a little bit of Dale Earnhardt Jr. But it's like my mentality is that I will, if it's a super speedway, I know that type of racing well enough that I will be very aggressive out on the get go. Um, if it's a track like Rockingham or Charlotte or so, yeah, I'm gonna pace myself and just see like, okay, does this line work? How does that feel for me? Does this line work? How does that work for me? Oh, we got someone who's, I don't qualify well, so I'm starting seventh. Oh, okay, so right now we're fighting for fourth place, and this guy ahead of me, he's like way slower than I am. Like he's gonna hold me up. All right, let's dive it down into the corner and just really get damn aggressive with this and just get him out of the way. Let's see what we can do. Okay, we're riding around in third place, but oh wow, we're only like half a second behind the leader. All right, do we want to keep that pace? Do we want to keep going, or do we want to push this harder? And that's on a good competitive day. On a bad day, like your road courses, like running the Motegi Road course or anything like that, tracks that I know that I am not going to have a hope or a shout or a prayer to be able to win in the first place. Yeah, you're the leader. You've got all the room, and I will even go off into the dirt to make sure that I don't get in your way. Um, but if it's an oval that I know that I got at least a chance at, going back to Rockingham, yeah, I'm on the threat of being a lap down. I'm blocking you as best I can so that way I can hopefully be there at the end to be able to try and snipe the win from you. So yeah, all depends on the situation, but I try to drive as courteous as I can and try to be as aware as I can because I already have known that I've had issues with not having the greatest sense of awareness around me. Um, and just making bad rookie mistakes. That's the other piece of it too. So
Yeah, well, you know, they're rookie mistakes because we all make them when we're rookies, right? So
right, right.
that just goes back to the whole, you know, you learn, adapt, overcome, etc. So,
Yeah.
We all went through it, and all you can do is keep getting better and better. So
I think
let's. Oh
oh,
nope, go ahead.
I was literally just going to say I think the general thing is that it's pretty damn rare that I'm ever like up in that top three area anyway. That for me to get up there based off of speed, my mentality is this is a a 1 in 100 shot. We're gonna go ahead and throw the courtesy rules like off to the side. Let's see what you can really do with this. Um, if it's mired in about mid pack, then it's like okay, we'll just roll with it. Um, yeah, those rookie mistakes sometimes come out when I'm getting a little bit too aggressive at front. And it's not how I want it to go anyway. So,
Right. So to get into the rivalries a little deeper, who would you say your main rival was or currently is?
so here's the funny thing, because I know it will be an eventual question, and I guess we could go ahead and answer this too. Have I intentionally wrecked anyone?
Oh yeah, that's the
When
favorite
I look,
question of the show.
let's do a 2-for-1 package on here. So to me, I will not wreck someone intentionally. I'm not going to shed any tears if you end up in the wall. I'm not going to shed any tears if I bump you, but I'm not going to pile drive you into the outside wall. If it's the last lap and you're someone who I do not get along with or enjoy racing, yeah, I'm going to maybe put the bumper to you and give you about a paper thin distance between you and that outside wall as we're charging for the last lap. I don't do that with a lot of people, and I don't usually do that intentionally. But if you're not on my favorite list, I'm not going to shed any tears if something bad happens to you. But I will not pile drive you into a pit wall or into the wall and make sure that your day goes badly. I don't think I've ever intentionally wrecked someone. I have maybe roughed up a couple of people, but not to junk them. Okay. On the question, rivalries. This will be fun. Uh, Probably the person who really dislikes me the most in one way or another is Phil Parker.
Oh boy, Phil Parker. All right, let's get into
Phil
it.
Parker. Um, I genuinely don't know what set off the bomb between him and I. I have a feeling that maybe what happened was, or at least my first negative interaction with him was we were running, I believe, Michigan or California in Allie Rain's, at the time, Johnny Gardner, their truck series event. And I'm running pretty decently, like fourth, fifth place. And we're getting ready for one of the second to last restarts or so. We're close to the end. And I can't remember what really happened, but either Phil just didn't go or Phil cut down deep to the inside and was like, I'm going to go ahead and take this place. Or he just made an aggressive move. Maybe he was behind me and he made an aggressive move. But I got so frustrated because I'm like, dude, we are back on the restart. These tires are as cold as can be. We've got 15 laps or so of racing left to do. You don't have to make such a move at this rate. And in consequence, you've wrecked me, you've wrecked yourself, you wrecked out 2 to 3 other people, and now none of us necessarily have a shot to win. And, let's say the race was 90 laps, you've now torn apart 80 laps of like a constant feel, like a constant drive in one fellow swoop. And I, at that time, my mentality is okay, this guy is brand new to this or fairly new to this from what I can tell. He is getting to learn the lay of the land, but it's like you should generally know cold tires do not equate the right conditions to make such an aggressive move.
Right, it takes a
I've
lap.
made that I've made that mistake before, and it's probably part of the reason why I'm not super aggressive on restarts, because I know that that's going to happen, because I've had that happen to me many times before. I've been the one who's been the instigator of it, and I've learned from it. So you would just think that, most people would kind of have an understanding of that, or would have picked up enough on that. It's like, yeah, you don't do that. You don't make an aggressive move until 2 to 3 laps into the run. And that's even pushing it. 4 at most. You can take your time and be patient about this. So I would probably probably the one that got most memed out of. And I probably should have pulled this up. I can't remember where it all lies, but we were running Kentucky
Yes, I
in
know this
IMRC.
story.
You know
Yes,
this story.
I know
Okay,
this
okay.
story.
If you know where the quote is, you're gonna have to put that up
Accidentally
on
intent wrecked you. Sorry,
you
something like that.
yes. If one of us can find the quote, we need to put this up on screen because it's so ridiculous.
It's probably buried in a Facebook group somewhere.
It probably is, and I know that I've seen it since then. But yeah, so we're wait. Well, you know this story, but we
We
have to
gotta
tell the
tell it.
viewers.
We gotta
We
tell the
gotta tell the
viewers.
viewers.
My boy
So we're
Sal will
racing.
love this.
We are racing Kentucky Speedway. Kentucky is my home track, so this is important to me. And I think that we're running like 5th place or so, maybe 8th. Like, this is just the general thing for me. And Phil is definitely got something that's running a little bit better than I am. I don't know if he's making it to the corners better than me. I don't know if he's just having a better exit, but I go ahead and I let him by. Understandable. Now, what I can see is, and the two things my brain is thinking at this time is, one, if I follow behind him, maybe I can just use the draft to be able to kind of keep pace with him. That's fine. Secondly, this will give me a shot to see, okay, if I can hear it or see it, is he letting off at this point? Is he coasting this far into the corner? Is he punching the gas at this point at the exit? Like, the problem with Kentucky is it's such a flat track, and generally speaking, I don't think that there's a great deal of consistency in terms of the track makers who have made Kentuckys, because they all feel so different from one another.
Oh
Some of them
yeah.
feel like they have more banking in turns 3 and 4 than they do 1 and 2, and vice versa. So there's no consistency there like you would expect running at like a Charlotte or a Kansas or a Talladega. Something about the Kentucky tracks just feels off to me. And this is coming from someone who watched many races there. What ended up happening is I think Phil either let out or hit the brakes, and he hit it at such a point that I wasn't really expecting it, and I just accidentally bumped him. It was an honest to God bump, and it was unintentional. I'm trying to follow him in. I followed a little bit too closely. I bump him in the rear, lazy spin, maybe a scrape against the wall. And I probably also burned my tires up in the process, but it's like, it's such a small thing. The caution is out. The leaders are in the backstretch, so they will be catching us, so we need to get moving. But overall, there is no threat to me or to Phil that cannot stop us from gassing it back up. I'll take my penalty as to see fit, and we'll cross the start and finish line, which is like maybe a few hundred yards away. We'll get it. We can pit. It was an accident. We'll move on from this. I think what I end up doing is, because I blew out a tire and I didn't want to risk sliding up in the dog leg, I went ahead and went into the pits. And then all of a sudden, Phil starts trying to hook me on the apron into traffic.
Yeah, you guys
Impending
were catching.
speeding
Yeah.
traffic. Yeah. Spins me out. I think he ends up wrecking. I do get a little bit of damage, but it's not any worse off from the initial incident. And I'm just bewildered because you're having a fight with me here, and you can be mad at that. I get that. but you're jeopardizing your chance to stay on the lead lap. You're jeopardizing your chance to avoid going a lap down before we cross the line. And you're jeopardizing wrecking your car further than what I even did to make a point of trying to kill me. I don't get that. I don't get that.
Oh man.
You have a bigger picture ahead of you, and you're choosing right now to take that out on me. Even if we got to the near the end of the race where I got bumped and run and just like went from, I don't know, 7th place to 11th or so. You know what? Justified. I can understand that. But literally, it's only moments after, and the damage is not as bad as you're making it out to be. You're not junked. You don't have engine damage. You're good. Why are you wrecking me? Why are you doing this? And it just blew my damn mind seeing this. And
Yeah.
it
This was like what, 2017, 2018, I think.
yeah, I'm trying to kind of look here. I mainly just have like all my wins up, but I would say yeah, like around somewhere like around 2017 to 2019 I'd approximate. Like yeah, yeah. And I know that I had like little incidences with Phil. I think that I ended up having a race where it's I don't even remember the super speedway, but it was one of those god tier super speedways, like wide, big, long, everything. I know I pushed up and I bumped him into the wall, and I remember him saying something along the lines of, "There's a reason why nobody likes you."
That's
And
the
I
age
as
old
I
insult.
and as I sputtered and bluttered out, which I don't know, I was more focused on driving, but it's like I was like, there's a lot of reasons why people don't like you either. I could have put that in a more concise sentencing structure, but it's like you've got an issue with me, but there's a lot of people who still like are willing to work with me. There's a lot more people that have a lot of beef with you, dude. Like you're the last person to be talking about this.
I feel like that's the age old excuse, right? Like whenever you have a problem with somebody, and even I've heard it, like it's been directed to me a lot. Like it's always, this is why no one likes you, or this is why you don't have friends. It's like, man, like why you always got to go straight to that?
Well, and it's such a childish little thing. So I I am willing to say this, right? Because I'm wanting to be the bigger person here. I have been dreadfully worried when Phil has come into leagues because I don't know if he has necessarily changed or if he still has a grudge out on me or anything else like that. But considering what he is doing with his life, I think he's going into the military. I say this just on the human level and everything like that. I hope he's good. I hope he's safe. My issues with him, okay, his personality is not someone who I'm going to be buddy buddy with. That is a
Right.
type of personality that is probably not going to gel with me outside of the game. But to have like that much of a vindictive feeling towards someone because of a video game, I'm not about that. So whatever he is doing in his life, I hope that he's good. I hope that he's safe. I hope that through time he's grown. Um, but yeah, there still is a part of me that's shit my pants afraid that we're gonna rekindle a rivalry from like 5 years ago, and what the hell is the point anymore? Like, what the hell is the point of that?
That's literally, I feel the same way. I wasn't really maybe planning on going too deep into detail on this, but
We'll have to have
t-
an inverse episode where someone interviews you.
yeah. I thought about doing an episode 0 like Tristan Grace did for his podcast last year, but I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna be so ADHD just talking for an hour straight. Like I'm not gonna do that. Yeah, someone at some point will have to interview me. But recently Tyler Stallhood and I have been having off and on things go on, and I've just really gotten to the point now where I'm like, you know, like talk is cheap at this point. You know what I mean? Like we can
Hmm.
sit here and apologize to each other for snapping when we're supposed to be good and stuff, and like after a while, it's just like, man, we keep just saying sorry to each other. Like we can either just start racing good and be good, or we can keep doing this cycle. But I'm not gonna feed into that at all. There was something that happened at Texas at Fast Sunday. I won't really go into any details because it was last Sunday. It's done with. It's over. It didn't impact my race in any bit. My fourth gear broke later anyway. Um,
Yeah.
but so like, he sent me some messages. I don't have a response anymore. So Tyler, if you're hearing this, like it is what it is. Um, like I'm just gonna race you the way I've been racing you. You can race me the way you want to race me. Like there's just no time. Like when you're younger and you have more time to race and you race with these people every week, like those dramas, the rivalries, they like matter more, even though they shouldn't, because you're seeing the guy all the time. But when you're not really, we're older now. Like I'm gonna be 28 in like a week. Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, and I think it's the same for Tyler. Like he doesn't have time for it either. Like I'm not gonna put any energy into talking about what happens on the track. Whatever happens on the track happens in the moment. Whatever I say in the moment is said in the moment. I was pissed in the moment. It is what it is. I move on. So
Well,
I went to
well, and
bed and I move on.
well, and I think that there's another element to this as well, because it does technically fit a little, and I will go ahead and admit this, just to roll back onto the earlier topic, like I don't know exactly how you have viewed me for all of this time or so. I always kind of assumed that you just didn't like me or whatnot because of how I raced. But I will certainly say this, that I know for a fact that I think it really depends on how people interact with one another, because I can understand getting upset in the game. I get that. It's high intensity, it's high movement, everything else like that. That being said, there are still people who I get along with that even other members of the community may not be keen on. Um, I know Nick Gunther, as an example. I know he's had some things about the community. He and I get along very cordially at the very least. I know that from running IBOS, I know that I had a big kerfuffle with Emmanuel. I get along very well with Emmanuel nowadays. Dunn, this one is funny in and of its own right. Um, Dunn and I have gotten into one another, and I'll have to find the video of it sometime because I don't think that you've seen it. There was a race at Walt Disney World that we did last season in the Grand National NSX 20 mod, and I made a final corner charge to try and push Dunn into the wall, and I accidentally wrecked him to the point of him flipping.
Oh
And
no.
rather than him getting mad, as I am like laughing and apologizing profusely, this man is laughing his ass off at just the overblown, super big wreck that just happened. And there is not a single shred of malice between him and I because of that incident. There can be things that happen either on the track in the past, or someone's reputation may precede them a little bit. To me, I can still generally get along with people. It's if their attitude in just general is so juxtaposed as to how I feel or how they treat others. That is where I have a bigger problem. That is where, nah, this is not working on the track, and this is not working off the track, and I just don't simply talk to him at that point. um in addition, there's obviously people who I want to give a massive shout out to Tyler Mallon. Tyler is a damn good driver. He
Oh
ended up
yeah.
beating me in Melancholy Lights at Charlotte, and I managed to charge up to second. That had a few laps been available for us to be able to restart, I might have made the jump on him. But in my view, if I can lose to people like that are out there that are like winning by like 5 seconds over second place, so they led the most amount of laps and maybe they managed to pull off a second, and that being the worst of it, it's like you're kicking my ass, but I can't even be mad at that. Like you did all of that and deserve to be up there. To me, it's a privilege if I can be able to finish up right behind you or battle you for the lead or anything like that. Um, so yeah, Phil, yeah. Uh, more on to the original question. Yeah, Phil Parker. I know Andrew Lemke had some issues. I haven't seen him around in
Who didn't
forever.
have issues with Andrew Lemke? Let's be
Mm,
real.
yeah,
I
yeah,
personally did not. But yeah, I there were some things that Andrew did say or did on track that would rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and I think
yeah,
shortly after he said a certain thing to a certain somebody, I just stopped seeing him around the community overall. So,
yeah,
um, if he's racing at all, I would assume he's on iRacing, but I don't keep in touch with him. So
yeah, yeah,
I will say though, to kind of answer your question of like what I thought of you. Um, I want to say like yeah, maybe like to your point, like obviously I forgot about the Lime Rock thing, but yeah, I would say maybe I didn't like how you would drive or whatnot. But as you said, you were new to it, and I don't think I realized that. I didn't know that, so I was ignorant to that. So I thought you were someone that should have known better. So for that, and for that reason, I was a little more aggressive with how I spoke to you when you
yeah,
were either like I was passing you or racing you or what it be. And
yeah,
I can say like I'm sorry for that if I ever came off that way. I think I was just ignorant to that. I would say though, on a second hand, one thing I was bad about earlier that I feel like I'm better at now, and a lot of people, some people might not do this, but we all have our groups, right? We all
right,
have the like 3 to 6 people we hang out with.
yeah, yeah,
Separating you from the group of people you hung out with, I always found difficult, and I would be nervous. I would be lying to say that I wasn't nervous to interact with you because of some of the people you hang out with. So I would say now, after seeing you venture out to fuel and stuff, it feels a lot easier. And like we're doing this episode now, to
yeah,
talk with you, and like I have no issues with you whatsoever. But because
yeah,
of
and
that association, to your group of friends, like some of them I have not had good interactions with, right? So, you know, without going into detail, Will and Dylan,
yeah,
um, so that has always made me kind of weary of talking to like either you or like Eric Rodriguez, say, like I
yeah,
just don't feel comfortable reaching out to you guys because like two of your friends really don't like me, so.
yeah. Well, and the way that I kind of look at it is that, and I kind of hold this to be very at the core of my personality. I believe that every single person going into this world at least deserves a modicum of when I interact with them, they're a good person. Now, if you prove yourself to be a crappy person, I get to make that decision on my own. Like I get to see that myself. Um, and I don't necessarily think that unless someone does something very egregious that's like universally agreed, like no, there's very there's no redeeming from that. Um, my friendships, especially in this community, are who I associate with that. But at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean that I have the same viewpoint as them, or um, if I don't have that like baggage or associated existing, it doesn't matter to me. The way that I've seen it, at least, and this is part of the reason why I wanted to come onto the show. I really wanted to clear the air with you because I see you, and you're a damn good driver. You've managed to go out and you can either win races or finish well. And you certainly have a knack at racing on certain tracks that I just either do not know how to do yet, or I don't know what you're supposed to do in order to get that right. So from a distance, I've always admired you from the driving aspect of it, but I have wondered, does this guy just not like me? Like, there's barely a word that we've said to each other, but it's like, is there like a lingering thing there that is existed that's like, nah, I don't want to talk to Blake, or Blake doesn't want to talk to me, and it's like, you have personal to sum it up, you personally have to do something to me in order for me to have a negative opinion of you. Or you have to do something that goes such strongly against general things that is so against what we as a society kind of agree, yeah, you shouldn't do this. Um, that would make me reflect negatively.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm just out here existing. And kind of like I said, I know that some people have had some issues with Dunn, and Dunn, I will admit, I love the guy. But shortly after he won his championship in IMRC, I believe, he did shift to a very aggressive driver. But he and I don't have a problem with one another. There may be people who have a problem with him, but he and I, there's no issue. We're laughing as we crash across the finish line in a race. And to any other person who would do that and actually would have a problem, they'd be cussing me out. They'd be yelling and screaming and calling for a suspension and everything like that. It's that interaction. It's that personality. It's that I can work with. So sorry, it's just, yeah, it's wild how people interact with one another, even just in general in this life. But to me, at least, like, I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt that you're at least a reasonably good person. And until you do something to me that changes that opinion, it either grows or shrinks or whatever the case is. But I'm at least willing to give you the benefit of the doubt that at the core of it, you and I are starting at neutral positive, and it'll change from there. So.
Right on. Yeah, I respect that, and I definitely feel the same way to a certain degree. That like if someone's not doing something to me, it doesn't really affect me, right?
Hey,
Um, like I said to start the episode, I'm a big music guy, and I'm a big rock and metal guy, and unfortunately, there are some artists who have gotten themselves in hot water with allegations and of stuff and whatnot, and I see a lot of people saying like, oh, or like their opinion on something, right? If they have a controversial opinion, and like I see people saying like, oh, you shouldn't listen to them because they're this, and this. You're supporting this, and this, and it's like, nah, man, I just like the music. Like I don't care what their opinion is on this or that. Like if unless they're like in jail, like I'm gonna keep listening to their stuff. Like it doesn't like that might seem bad to some people that like, oh, you're supporting this. It's like, nah, man, I just like the music. So, it is what it is on that front. So, yeah, yeah, I reciprocate that definitely. Let's shift away from this a little bit, but also still the fun stuff. So, what would you
oh, sure.
say? Unless it's the thing with done, or something else, what would you say is the dumbest thing you've ever done on the track?
You've given me a question that has so many answers to it.
Whatever sticks out. Whatever sticks out.
I can't. I gotta be honest. I can't really think of anything now, mainly because a lot of those earlier instances, like there's a certain level of like ashamedness that I feel. It's like, yeah, why did you do that? Like from watching racing, people would not do this, and yet you decided to do it anyway. Um, this is maybe a little bit more secondhand embarrassment, and I do have to apologize. It has been so long at this point that I don't know how to how the events of everything happened. But so I'm the oldest of four sons, and I got one of my younger brothers, Grant, into racing IMRC.
Oh, I think I know what story this is, but carry on.
I can't remember all the details, but effectively summing it up, I think Gra- Grant was having the same level of struggles, if not more than what I was. Grant has obviously played like NR2 NASCAR Thunder 2003, just as I have. But when it comes to gaming, I am so hard in the paint for racing games that is mostly what I play. Him, not so much, and it's understandable. But I know that he did something. Either he made a bad block while he was running many laps down, or something. But it ended up screwing someone out of a championship.
Okay, so yep, this is the story I thought it was. So I remember this completely because this benefited me. So it was the season 9 IMRC Cup Series finale at Homestead. The final four was myself, Chris Sweats, Dylan Poteet, and Jovan Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
Dylan blew up at some point earlier on in the race, and as you said, your brother Grant, he was a couple laps down, and he was also having internet trouble to where he was
Yeah.
like warping in and out. So
Yeah.
this was with about maybe 7 or 8 to go. Jovan was leading, I was behind him, and we knew we were catching him. And Jovan was calling for him in the chat to like stay low or go high or whatnot, like saying we were coming, right? And
Yeah.
we went off into turn 1, and when we're going into turn 1, he's ahead of us, and he disappeared. Um, and then we're coming off of turn 2, and he reappeared, and Jovan is running into him, and Jovan got wrecked.
Yeah.
So that was the incident there, and then we had the caution, the restart, and it ended up being down to just me and Chris Wett. So yeah, that was the
Uh,
incident you are recalling.
yeah. Comparatively speaking,
Jovan was not happy.
oh, I know that Joven was not, and I felt horrible when that happened because this would be the equivalency of like Shane saying, "Hey, my buddy Blake is looking to get into NI 2003 and do some league races." Okay, Blake runs into an issue in his very first race. So not only is Blake in trouble, but now Shane's in trouble for like advocating to have me come into this league. That is exactly how I felt with Grant's situation. And because of that, not necessarily that one instance, because he did try and race a few more times, even like a year ago. For better or worse, his work life has gotten more involved. So he does not race anymore. But I feel bad because I know that he was trying. I know that my brother was trying his heart out to figure it out. But I think that just based off of the skill gap that was existing between him and I, and then us versus everyone else, yeah, it didn't go well for everyone else. So I'm sure that I have many situations where I've like self spawned and just messed something up, or just I'd say the most embarrassing thing that has ever happened to me is just getting parked mid race because of too many spins. There's nothing worse than that. But yeah, that definitely put a damper on my mood with everything.
Well, you could jokingly say Grant just didn't like Jovan because he was driving a Chicago Bears scheme in that race. So,
Uh,
if anything, Jovan got the typical Chicago Bears luck, and he got screwed over right there.
nothing justifying that. Just
No,
that's
no, no. But it is
just a
funny to
shitty
think about.
situation. No, it is. It is.
Maybe don't run a Chicago Bears scheme next time when you're running for a championship.
I know that there was at one point, and it's happened before. I've gotten, I guess, second to just getting parked in a race is getting parked in a race, being suspended for the following race, and then being allowed to come back the following week. Like, there's just an area of shame there that's like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't get to ask, so we'll circle back to this, and we'll
Sure,
actually
sure.
we'll actually combine this question a little bit, so you can answer these in whatever order you like. So,
I
what was your first league win, and then what win means the most to you looking back.
So, but the second question, that one is going to have to be a two-parter because there are two wins that mean so much to me. But I'll get to that in a minute. Let's go ahead and go with the very first win. And this is where I'm happy I've been documenting all this stuff. So, through my entire time in NR, I have gotten up to now 19 wins total. Two of them are exhibitions, so you can cut them out. So it's the answer is more 17. But my very first win, we were running Robbie Gilvin, at the time he was going by Robbie Jackson, was running a league called the Southern Comfort Grand National 55 Series.
I
Okay.
remember this. Yep.
So the season opener was held at the Daytona Beach Road Course. If you remember, for anyone who remembers the NASCAR Thunder games, they had the unlockable Daytona Beach Road Course that was just a big, giant paperclip oval with part of it being tarmac and the vast majority of it being sand.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This race was initially set up to, I think, run 20 laps or so. So just because of the track distance, it was going to have to be a shorter race distance. But everyone who came out to that race kind of didn't realize that it was the first points paying event. So they thought it was an exhibition and that the actual action would happen the following week at Bowman Gray Stadium. Pretty much the long and the short of it, because of cautions, because of how long it was taking the race to be, the race ended up getting shortened by about 10 laps. And I think that effectively by the end of it, I remember the guy's name, Mitch Gretzky, was racing me for the lead with like maybe 5 laps to go. I'm running the number 42 Lee Petty white. I think he was driving an Oldsmobile or something like that at that time, Plymouth. And Mitch, I think, was running the 55. I don't know what type of car it was. But in the closing laps, we are swapping the lead back and forth. We're like the only two cars on the track surface fighting for the lead, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And to put this a little bit more into perspective, my debut in that IORL Indy Lights race was on August 26th of 2016, and this first win came on April 20th, 2017. So I had been playing the game for at least a good amount of time by that point and had not won a race yet. We're going at it, and we're being about as clean as we can be. And I think Mitch overdrove the second to last corner with 2 to go and hits the wall. So I get ahead, and I'm like struggling. I'm shaking. I'm sweating. I'm trying to keep my focus and everything. But just being able to like easily make it into the corners, which credit to it, the Daytona Beach Road Course is actually kind of hard sometimes to navigate around because of the sand texture being grass effectively. You can lose traction very easily on that if you're not careful. And when you transition into the turn and then onto the tarmac, that's weird as well too. You just gain this massive amount of grip. Managed to continue on, and I end up winning by maybe about 2 seconds over Mitch. But it was just such a monumental thing because everyone dreams of winning Daytona, obviously. I think it's actually kind of special that it's like you won a race at the Daytona Beach Road Course, which A, was not originally made in the game. This had to be modded in. And B, is literally so far back in the sport's past that it's actually kind of crazy that you win there, that we're even running a race here. So that was really special. 420 in 2017, win the Southern Comfort GN55 race at Daytona Beach Road Course. And due to the season actually getting canceled early by like 3 events, I ended up winning the championship. And then the series dissolved.
Yeah.
Uh, So that answers the first question. Second question, which is going to have to be in two parts. Favorite win. So this one is very, very, very special to me because it is March 3rd, 2018. No, my apologies. It is November 27th, 2017, and Studio Speed, which has just released shortly before released the Winston Cup 98 mod. They have a race at Pensacola Super Speedway 1999 edition.
Okay.
I randomly got invited to this race. I think that Schwal and a few other people, John Poole III, who I had raced against before, some of them were like, "Hey Blake, do you want to come out and run this race with us?" Oh yeah, Coy Williams was also there too. They're all like, "Hey Blake, do you want to come and run this race with us?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got nothing better to do. I'll gladly go out and do this." Now, here's why this race is important. I broke my ankle in 3 places in September of 2017. So I'm depressed. I am in a lot of pain, and I am having such a difficulty with things in general. As my foot is in an air cast, I can't walk on it at all. I can't do anything. My life has been so disrupted over these last couple of months that I am just seeking something to do. So I get into the server. I didn't really have enough time to be able to make a paint scheme, so I effectively took a yellow to red gradient, went from the hood down to the body, made it look like the Dale Earnhardt Jr. hat that I was talking about earlier from his 2003 Oreo Ritz car. If you look that hat up, like you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. Didn't put any sponsors on it, just put an 81 on it and was like, I don't have enough time. I got to go and run this race. Just put that into the class folder and go. Qualify about 20th. Taking it easy, kind of figuring it out. There's a lot of room to pass. There's a lot of room to draft. Get up into the top 10, and then everyone ahead of me pits, and I stay out. Now, to put into also perspective of this, I can't use my right foot. And if I even wanted to try to, the boot is so big, spacious, and clunky that I'm going to be pressing both the gas and brake with my foot. So I'm having to literally use my left foot for everything.
Oh wow.
Throttle, brake, clutch if I have to. And just alternating, just shifting in the most awkward positioning to be able to get everything lined up. I managed to clutch and save enough fuel under the caution flag periods. I think there were like 3. And not only did I take the lead under caution and lead for a few laps there, I led the entire rest of the race. I led the most laps. I won the race with only 1 foot available to do anything. And it was amazing. It was and the crazier thing is that despite the fact that I probably was putting myself out to dry by just holding the inside line for a majority of the race distance and everything, just to pinch it off when we got into the corners, nobody really made a move on me, which was even more confusing. They all just ran in a single file pack more or less behind me. And if we did go like 2 wide or so, there weren't enough cars on the outside to be able to make that move and like just expectedly draft on by me, relegating me back to 5th. I didn't pit. I saved enough under caution for gas. I lead the most laps. I win the race. I win the race while I am in such this low-ass place in my own head because I'm injured. And to make it even better, my brother, Shane, was in Pensacola, Florida right now. He had literally been sworn into the Navy just a couple months prior. So to me, it all came in together. I actually broke my ankle the same day after he was sworn in to go into the United States Navy. So all of that was already emotional. Now I have broken bones. To have all of that come together made me break down in tears of happiness because it just all tied together. His birthday was around that day. It was around the day of that race. We're racing at Pensacola, which is close to the actual naval base. Just everything about it. By far my favorite win in terms of adversity outside of just running the race itself. Everything else outside of it was massive. Um, for the second race, and thus far my favorite, February 25th, 2024, NNSCRA with the Next Gen Cup Series is racing at Darlington Raceway. And what we're doing is we have set up, we're going to do a Darlington throwback race. And I'm actually kind of thankful for this because it actually had a pretty good turnout. I went ahead and made a good number of the throwback paint schemes. So let me think here. Cole Eastwood, he was running Arsenal Football Club as a sponsor. I went ahead and took that with some of the color design and blended it to make a throwback to the Rockwell Automation 20 that Joe Gibbs ran, if you remember that
Yep.
car.
Yeah, I recall.
Let me think here. I think Anthony McCurry was running the 61, and he had Celsius on the hood, and I went ahead and effectively did a Matt Kenseth DeWalt Tools throwback with his scheme. And I'm literally making schemes like up until the last hour before practice starts. So I'm running the what was the sponsor? I'm running the Amico colors of Dave Blaney. I'm running a Ford Mustang. I got the 12 on the doors and everything like that. And we're all in all having a good race. There's a good number of green flag running here. A few spins, nothing major, but it all comes down to this. So I'm relegated at about maybe 6th place, I think. And we're getting ready for the final restart. And what's crazy about this final restart is it is a literal green-white checker finish in that the green and white are going to fly at the exact same time, and then the next flag that ends it is the checkered. So it is a one-lap shootout.
Oh boy.
Oh boy, indeed. Now I've had a couple of spins, I've had a couple of bumps, but nothing so bad that it's taken me out of it. So I'm starting to the outside. Now, I know that the outside line in turns 1 and 2 has actually been very favorable for me. And I think that if I can just grip it there, if I can really, really run it, I'm going to be able to hold the outside and I'm going to be able to have the better shot down the backstretch. And then we'll just figure it out where it goes from there. Green flag waves, white flag waves. Cole, Eastwood, and Cody Lamas get together. Cole accidentally spins Cody, and Cole is going to get an end of the longest line penalty at the end of the race and go a lap down. So that's guaranteed. That's the front row. That's first and second. So they're eliminated. Then we go off into turn 1, and all of a sudden, the inside line checks up, and they crash. And they crash big. Every single person from like 4th on back gets into this wreck, and I barely get by. I think that had one car slid up and hit me in the door, I would have gone spinning and wrecking myself. Everyone behind me and beside of me is gone. Nobody is there. So now as we fly down the backstretch, Cole is still leading, quote unquote. He's in the position of first, but he's no longer scored. So that doesn't matter anymore. Nick Gunther is in second, and he did not pit on the last pit stop. Or he maybe pitted a little bit earlier before like one of the last stops. So he had slightly more worn tires. Cole's not holding him up really. Nick's just kind of following him. I get a head of speed go blasting off down the backstretch, running side by side against Nick. And I'm just following Cole, who's moved down to the inside. I'm just going to draft with him. I'm going to draft and I'm going to see what I can do and just like see if that draft will give me a minor advantage. We go sailing off into turn 3. Nick slides up. He hits the wall. Cole slides up. He hits the wall. I don't touch them or anything like that. And because of how sticky the wall is, they just drop back. They fall like stones. And I'm completely clear. By the apex of 3 and 4, there is nobody beside me. There's nobody behind me. There's nobody ahead of me. It's clean, fresh air all about. I essentially put down a qualifying lap in terms of the aggressiveness and speed and determination and just the ability for the car to stick, that I go and I win at Darlington of all places. Darlington and I have never gotten along in any capacity, and I'm going into this race just expecting, we'll get a 5th place. Maybe we'll get 8th. We'll just go and we're locked into the chase. We haven't won a race yet, but we're well enough points-wise that we're in the chase. Don't make a big deal about this. That win, by the way, I've calculated all of this out. It had been 680 days since my last win in any NR league that I had ran in, which is the second longest break in between wins for me since I've been playing this game.
That's a
680
long time.
days. 680 days in a throwback scheme that I designed that combines the best of what Ryan Blaney and Dave Blaney is. Winning at Darlington, where Dave almost won in 2003, on a last lap, last turn, clean as ass pass, also while making so many of the other throwback schemes for that night, and I go and I win the race. And I broke down sobbing in excitement and just, I could feel my body like closing in on itself. My arms just coming back to my chest because I was that overwhelmed. It's like, how? How did all of that work, especially in my favor? And thank God it was clean as hell. Nobody got fenced. Nobody got wrecked. Nothing would have been a controversial finish about that. Nothing by my own hand, at least.
Yeah, I mean
So,
that's great. I mean, when don't win that much, all those wins mean so much, right?
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'm sitting over here. I can go out and win any given race I enter. At this point, like
Yeah.
it's just a matter of execution for me. It's not the same for everybody. So it's cool to hear you like tell these stories of these wins that mean so much to you, because you don't get to win them all the time. At this point for me, and I think I've said this on previous episodes, the only things that really mean anything to me anymore are like championships, or like if I had won at Texas Sunday, like I would have been stoked. I would have been
Yeah.
like, finally, I won at Texas, but like, or it just basically comes down to championships now, because there's just so many tracks that I've gone to that I've got like 4 or 5 wins at. Like the impact those wins have on you, they lessen when you get to a certain point. So it's nice to see people like yourself, still have all that emotion when you get a win, even though it is, it's just a game, right? But you're
Well,
still happy to win.
yeah, and here's the biggest thing, like, and I had said this because I did stream the race and everything like that. Like, considering how that season was going at the time, like, and even looking at it from a broader perspective, I felt so honored to win that night because I know how good all of these other drivers are. There are drivers that have gone and won multiple championships. There are people that have gone and won multiple races. There are people who are running like generally top 3 in the points, like from beginning to end. And if they do have a stumble, it's so minor that they can make that difference up. Their expectation and their general finish is going to be a top 5. I don't get that luxury that often. I don't get that opportunity that frequently. So to me, to be able to walk out there and do something like that blew me away because literally at that point I was beating the best of the best people in that active season. And the only thing that I had to hang my hat on prior, and there was some promise at least, was like I ran on a string of like fourth place finishes for 3 weeks in a row. And it's like, okay, this is improvement for Blake. This is going a lot better. Um yeah, to go out and as another tale of it, super speedways are kind of a crapshoot anyway. I think that there's a certain level of if a driver wins only on super speedways, they get kind of flagged as that's all that they can do. To me, to be able to win on some of these harder tracks, I'll even go ahead and say this if this is going to be an eventual question. I have never won at Homestead. I have never won at Charlotte. And I have never won at Rockingham. And those are 3 tracks that I've had very, very strong runs on that to the equivalency of, being really solid as a super speedway race. The stats back it up that I can win there. I just haven't yet. And it's why I want to win there so badly. So while Darlington was not on that list by any means, it still has that air of prestige. It still has that air of challenge because that race is challenging for everybody. You're not going to necessarily come out of that race 100%, 0 incident points or anything like that. Everyone's going to have something happen to them. It's whoever has the least amount of issues that's going to win that race. And it's like, I did it. I was that person and managed to beat all of these people out who are, well above in the point standings and everything like that, who have already had that. I'm in this season and my goal is to win one race. There you go. There are seasons where that does not happen to me. And that's why it's so exciting to me.
Right. Yeah, you talk about Homestead, man. I've won there 14 times now or something. Something crazy. There ever since Homestead BB came out, I have
Mm-hmm.
just been on it on that track. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what you change the grip lanes to or whatever. Like I've won on the 3 groove version, which is the default version. I've won on a 2 groove version a couple of times at MOT. Like I figure out where the grip is, and I just however the geometry has been set up for that track, I have like a knack to excel there. Um, there's only like two
You
or three times I have not won a race on that version.
you let me think here. Did you and Andrew stream the oh maybe it was just Andrew. Uh y'all streamed the winter trucks race though at Homestead,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I was there. Yep, yeah, we
Okay.
did that.
Okay. I wanted to make sure that you were there because I swear I remember you co-commentating. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I have had like literally 4 races where I've actually done very, very well. And if you remember the Cup Series race that was run just a few days prior, I did manage to get up there and drive on my own and lead some laps. Um, I just can't win there. I have not won there. But there's something that is promising though that it's like, oh no, you've got the guts that you can be able to get up there and lead laps. We just got to put that together into a victory. Or you can be able to make this last lap move and okay, the truck situation didn't exactly go my way, but it's like you can do this. We just got to put it all together.
Yeah, that
And
was the same.
it's going into races like that it's like, nah, I'm going into this and I'm expecting we can get a top 3 out of it rather than, oh, we're coming into this and we're going to finish 8th.
Right. Yeah, it was the same for me for 2 tracks I did not get a win at for a long time was California and Kansas. I had won a race there or two back like 2016, 2017, but I did not win at those tracks again until last year. That was
Mm-hmm.
7 years where something would happen at those tracks where I just could not get the victory. And like last year, I won a couple of races at both of them. So, I got the monkey off the back at those, but the monkey persists at Texas. So, actually, to just dive into it really quickly,
Yeah.
my league is running Texas tonight. I don't get particularly too many people, so it will have a bit of an asterisk next to it if it does happen. But I'm hoping I can just say, yeah, I won one finally. Even if it was just my tiny little league, I can hopefully say that I won one. But at the same time, I'm like, something weird's going to happen to me tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, California is definitely one of those tracks that's on my list as well. There's just not enough leagues that will run California in general because there's other options. Or and I kind of understand it because you don't want it to become too stale, but there's a good number of leagues that's like, okay, we're only going to run California for this season, and then the next 2 seasons it's off the schedule entirely. So it's like, okay, how am I supposed to kind of keep up with the consistency of like string together a fourth place, then next running we get a third? Like the potential is there, but you also kind of need to have those consistent seasons where you're racing there to figure it out, you know?
Absolutely. All right, let's get into one of my favorite questions on the show. This is a 4-part question. Your
Yep.
favorite mod, your favorite track, you can include the version if you like, favorite league to race at, past or present, and your favorite physics type. And you can go in that in any order. If you want to do a short answer, one, get it out of the way, and then do the long answers. It's up to you.
Okay, so if I miss any of them, just roll me back and
Yep, of
grab
course.
me for that. So favorite track. I'm gonna have to say Rockingham. Haven't won there yet, like I said, but I genuinely don't know what it is, but there is something about, and it doesn't even matter what version of it is. I maybe more has to do with the car setup because I've run on some really poor car setups where the track feels good, but the setup doesn't. Rockingham is an anomaly to me because when the grip is right, even with worn tires, it grips right. And you can hammer it down into the corner as hard as you can, and you can make it stick. Throw into the fact that you can also kind of bounce between like dead bottom to middle ish area to, even if you're careful enough, the high side for that matter. There's just something so fun about running Rockingham that I genuinely wish more leagues would go out and race there. That track is challenging, that track is difficult, but it is so fun. And when the setup and track combination work just right, oh my god, it's a bull ring. But you just have more space to be able to work with and more time to like plan on getting into the corners. And also to throw this into, you really don't have to mess with the brakes as much as you would think. You have to get into there a little bit, but you're not coming to like a dead stop as if you were at Martinsville, as an example, where there's no banking. You go down a drag strip, you have to slam on the brakes, you run the risk of sliding up, like all of that. Don't know why it is, but I really, really love Rockingham. And I really have found that I enjoy racing Charlotte, but Rockingham is like mainly because, well, up until this year, it was not, it was no longer included in any real racing series. My heart just was like, Rockingham, love it, want it, need it. I'm gonna win here someday. Um, Let me think here. Favorite mod. That one is a little bit harder to say. Because I've cycled through different mods. I've run the Wing COT, I think. I've run the 2012 mod, which is like a hybrid combination of like the COT, but also not the COT, but before the Gen 6. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've run Ment 17 through 19. I've run the next gen car. I've run the older cars.
You can do like
I,
a top 3 or top 5 in no particular order
I,
if you want.
I think I'll do that. I'll kind of blend them. I'll kind of blend this first one as third place, like all together, because it's effectively the same thing. If they could fix some of the like uh, hitbox detection or so, the SMG 2003 through 2005 mod is definitely a favorite of mine. They did a really good job in terms of like painting the cars and everything like that. And minus a little bit of frustration with how the template is laid out. I don't like how the roof is so separate from the rest of the body. I do like that mod because it hits at a cornerstone to when I started remembering watching some of these races live. And it also highlights a little bit of history of like, oh, hey, Andy Belmont drove this 59 car or whatever. And it's like, oh, yeah, I didn't really remember that. That's kind of cool. Oh, hey, here's Carrie Earnhardt's car from the 83 Fritz Bradshaw team. It's like, okay, that's cool. Like, it's interesting to kind of see that. And I like that overall it looks better, graphically speaking. Second place is probably going to be the next gen mod. I really have gotten used to painting on that, and I really like how, to the funny side of it, there have been so many different manufacturers that have been made around that mod within the community. So, uh, Seth Cole, for example, was running a Nissan at one point. Like, it's got that level of like, yeah, we're going to follow the real world rules, but we can also get wacky and silly with this. And it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun getting to see it.
Yeah,
Um,
I ran a Nissan GTR a little bit last year at RTG for their Monday series, so that was fun to
yeah,
do.
yeah, there you go. I think that the flexibility that the mod also has, like, you can be able to put a wing on the next gen car if you change out the spoiler or so, or if you input a different physics type onto it. There's just such a fun level of flexibility there that's like, okay, I'm not crazy about the numbers being moved and everything like that, but as long as the scheme is utilized well, it's fine. Um, but I really like the creativity that the general mod kind of brings. And for the final one, even though that's not the same group that made it, I probably would have to give it to the predecessor. The SNG 2017 through 2019 mod is probably my favorite. I haven't raced it in a long time. No, actually, I'm going to change my answer. The NSX 20 mod. I really, really like the NSX 20 mod. Um, it's got a lot of the positives that I was going to say about SNG's 17 through 19 mod. Um, but it, I think it's just the element that the actual Xfinity series is still built more like a purpose-built race car than a assemble these pieces off the assembly line and build it into a race car like the next gen has. Um, and I think that you can get away with doing a lot more creative paint schemes with it too. Um, so yeah, I just more so say the NSX20 mod because it is more actively being used. I don't see as many people still using SNG's 17 through 19 mod, but both of them are like in the same fairgrounds of like what I enjoy about it.
Yeah, I think there's a few leagues that are out there, I believe, that use NCS 2021, which was a
Hmm.
mod Cosman came back to do through Splash and Go. That I think leagues generally use that more just because it's technically got a more updated Camaro
Yeah.
as opposed to like running Mets Cup 2019. And I
Yes.
think Cosman improved a few other things I don't recall. I personally only ran it, I think, maybe once or twice. I have not run that mod enough to really have an opinion of it. But I do know that people use it, such as like IFAR. IFAR runs that
Yeah.
mod.
Yeah. I did run iFi for a little bit, so I do remember that they did use that. So pretty certain that they did. Favorite physics type. I think it really depends. I think I would lean a little bit more towards CTS physics. There's something about being a little bit more grounded, and then also just the fact that the suck up rate is just better by comparison. I feel that it's a more durable physics set, so if you do smack the wall or so, you're not going to be aerodynamically hampered as badly as you would maybe with Cup. And even though that you're losing a little bit on overall top speed, I think that it just also makes the racing a little bit closer and gives everyone a chance to be like, okay, I can make this final run or I can do this final thing. weight wise, it really doesn't feel all that different from Cup, just maybe a little bit more stable
I
under
think it's
acceleration.
I think it's the same weight. I think it's just the horsepower and then the drag are different, I want to say.
Yeah, yeah. I figured because back during the 2000 early-ish 2000s, I know they kept saying that the trucks and the Cup car were more similar to one another, and then and then things have changed so much that it's like, well, now they're not even really all that close to any of them. But yeah, the CTS physics, I really like racing that. Cup, I think, just takes a little bit more of a different type of learning curve. You can apply a lot of the same things that you learn from CTS, but it's not as one to one, I would say. You need to have a special expectation that how this car is going to change in grip level or whatnot, that you can prepare for that. I think that CTS is just a lot more forgiving, which is good, whether you're a veteran or a rookie.
Right on. Yeah. Yeah, I personally love cup physics for it spreads out the competition more. It's more fun to drive, but I do like CTS as much too because I feel like it's harder to win with CTS physics than Cup because it bunches the field up. There's not as much horsepower. You can't really get away from anybody on any given oval. Like, you just can't. So that
Yeah.
makes it more competitive in that nature.
Well, and to throw into this, I know that there have been some leagues, IMRC especially, that would do, okay, for a super speedway package, like we're going to have these adjustments anyway with the track itself, but we're also going to be running CTS physics to
Yep.
help with the suck up and everything like that. And it's like, I can respect that so much. Like, I think that that makes it a much more even and fair playing ground for everyone. And if you don't do well on the rest of the tracks, then at least you have like 2 to 4 shots at getting a win or getting a good race out of a super speedway. And yeah, personally, I just always felt that it was both more intense, more fun, but also a little bit fairer too. So, and
Right
then
on.
favorite league. I mean, really, the only thing that I am running super actively in is fuel, and I say this in no disrespect, but I think that I've had a lot more fun with the uh, overall Grand National division than I have Sportsman. Sportsman is not bad by any means, but the drop races kind of leave me a little bit confused as to how well I'm supposed to be doing overall. And in addition, something about the tracks just has not agreed with me this season. But I don't really have any issues with the adminship. It's just me sucking. That's really about it.
I think the difference
Um,
there might be, it's fixed setup for sportsmen, and Apollo has a very unique skill set in that he's on controller, and then the way he drives is even more unique. So
mhm.
that can be a challenge to try to give everybody something that is comfortable
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
works.
Which is
So,
why it really surprises me that I've had as much fun as I've had in the Grand National division because I have barely done open setup leagues. And if I have, it would be a race that would typically be dominated by like a Tyler Mallon, like someone who has done open setup, or like a bomb squad type person, someone who has done open setup, knows all the tips and tricks and everything like that. I'm just someone who knows how to do minor adjustments like on the sway bar, the wedge, and maybe the grill tape to figure out how to get my car to handle better, which does not mean that I'm going to win by any means.
right, yeah. Yeah, I personally feel like I have a pretty good understanding of what to do in a garage, but I am terrible at explaining what changes to make. Like if someone were to ask me, "Oh, like why would you do this?" and I'm like, "Oh, it just make it snugs up the rear end, and then you move more weight back, and then you're looser." And it's like, I mean, that's like I can kind of explain it, but also can't explain it as good. Like when I hear Tyler or Joven or one of the Bomb Squad guys, Kilojoules, when I hear them explain how they can change things and what it does, I'm like, yeah, see, I can't explain it as good as them. Like, I know what I'm doing is making me faster. I just can't really put it in the words.
The one thing that I have kind of wished for the longest time now that would offer something of a reasonable handshake agreement is I wish that there was a version of NR that was modified that would allow you to make the general pit stop changes. So you could you could change your wedge, you could change the tire pressure, you could change the sway bar, you could change the tape, you could do all of that stuff. But it locks the engine down block stock that, similar to a fixed setup league, you cannot touch the engine. Because to me at least, there are people who have that engine tuning knowledge, and if they're not
Yeah,
willing to share
gearing.
that, they're always going to have that advantage, and they're always going to be better. Whereas I think for some people who like are not as engine tune minded, but understand how, you know, taking the wedge in, taking the wedge out will affect the car in the handling this way, or raising or lowering the track bar, or oh, my tires are burning up more, let's change the air pressure. Like those are things that reasonably I could see someone being like, yeah, we'll allow this. But no, you can't touch the engine, as an example.
Yeah, I think you're not alone. I think Keith Hughes and or some other people have been like talking about doing that because and it should be possible because if you go into open setup cup physics, if you go to a chassis one track, there's stuff that is grayed out and you are not allowed to touch. There's stuff that is set to a default number and you cannot change that. Chassis one, the few things I know for a fact are the few things I know are locked. It's the spoiler degree you cannot
Mm-hmm.
change in chassis one, and then there are three things on the rear suspension you're not allowed to touch. And then everything else is open. So if
Yeah,
someone could make an EXE where, okay, make a stock setup, like make the fast setup, right?
right.
Lock everything but tire pressure, grill tape, wedge, and track bar. Those are the things you can adjust when you're on the track. Lock everything but those, and then like throw it to the wolves. But so to
Yep.
me, you wouldn't want to just make a super tight setup because all you would then have to really do is just either crank the track bar all the way up, take all the wedge out, whatever. Like make something someone would have to have enough knowledge to where they could make something that is not super tight, not super loose, but like something close to loose. So then that way, like you have to find the right edge of like what is too loose. Like if I take all the wedge out, is that gonna be okay or is that not okay? Can I add so much grill tape? Like what can I or can't I do? I think that would maybe be fun in a way. Like if you had the setup
Yeah.
set to like say the default tape is like 40 and the gear the gear still gets up to like 8500. Okay, well then you have to figure out how much tape can I get away with? Can I get away with 60? Like
Yeah.
maybe I can only get away with 55. Like that would be something you could figure out.
My mentality is that you should always have the threat of quote unquote punishment by doing the wrong thing. Like let's say that you tape it up to 70 and you blow your engine. Okay, that's on you. You made that decision to gain more speed, and the consequence was is that you blew out your engine. At the exact same time, I don't feel that you should necessarily be punished because your driving style maybe hinges more on a looser setup, but you can't touch anything or do something that would help with that because the setup is locked. I find for myself, like, I'm more of someone who will mess with the sway bar before I even touch the wedge or touch the grill tape. And I don't know enough about tire pressures in general to, like, figure out, okay, this is going to help me turn better or so. But if I only need, like, just, let's say, 3 clicks up on the sway bar and I will be fine, you shouldn't be punished for that. Like, you get what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah. Have it be within fair competition, but allow you yourself to have a little bit of wiggle room to help you in how you drive. So,
So you mentioned this at the beginning of the show. So I was hoping maybe you could expand on this. So,
certainly.
why have you not moved to iRacing with like, those guys like Will, Cole? Like I saw
Mhm.
I just happened to be on Twitch late last night and I still follow Will's Twitch account and I saw
Yeah.
him running a race and so it was Arca Michigan iRacing,
Mhm.
Mac Johnson's league. And so,
Okay.
so what has like kept you stubbornly clinging to NR as opposed to going to iRacing with like Will, Cole, etc.?
Well, I know this much. I will definitely have to switch over to something because I just have this feeling in my heart that there's going to be a Windows update or there's just going to be a whole full-fledged Windows operating system that'll come out. And a lot of the tools that we use to make NR still work are going to break, or the game is going to completely break. Or more organically, naturally, and understandably, uh, the leagues are going to be shrinking that it's either no longer money wise
Worth it.
investable,
Yeah.
yeah, worth it to continue doing that, or just the managerial maintenance of it all. It's like, no, we're laying over too many leagues, independent leagues, but they're all based on coming out of one server. You know what I mean?
Right. And to that
um,
point, really quickly, like people will either start to find new leagues to race at. Like you have to move out of the clique because there's a lot of little cliques where like people race at the same like 3 to 5 places during a given week. And even
yep,
me, I know, like I had Arya on here last week's episode, and
yeah,
a lot of the leagues she was saying, I'm like, man, I've never heard of these places. Like there's more
yeah,
leagues out there than you realize, but you
there
just get
are,
so sucked into your cube, and then your cube, you go from having 20 guys show up to 15 guys show up to 10, and you're like, well, where do I go but iRacing or something else, right? You
yeah,
just
yeah,
have
yeah,
to look outside the comfort zone. But to your point of the operating system, I agree. I remember when Windows 11 came out a couple years ago, people were having some issues at first, but they've mostly gotten that resolved, and a lot of
yeah,
people have the game working on Windows 11 now. But I know Windows 10 support ends in October. I
yep,
don't
yep,
know if we're supposed to get Windows 12 at the end of this year or whatever the new system is going to be, but I believe it is in development because if I remember reading correctly, they're supposed to have a new operating system every like 5 years or something, and then they only have two that they support at a given time. So like 11's
yeah,
been out for like 4 or 5 years now, so support for 10 is going to end, and they're going to have a new system come out, and then in another 5 years, 11 support will end, and it just they cycle like that.
yeah, yeah. It just continues that cycle. And not to turn into the tech podcast or so, but my day job is doing IT support. So, and this is something I've been wondering is apparently some people have managed to get NR working on Linux, which is
Yep. Yeah.
generally free operating systems and everything like that. And I know that there are translation layers to Linux. I think that maybe it's not exclusively Wine, but I've heard of Wine acting as a translation layer for Windows executables, and they can generally emulate and work right. The question is like if I get NR working and I say get OBS working and a few other programs, does that mean that I can still be able to get like, I don't know, uh Metal Gear Solid Definitive Edition on Steam? Like, can I get that working on it? Like, the focus is do I continue with what is the current path of Windows, which I do not enjoy? Do I go to a different operating system and run the risk of having stuff not be compatible, or do I have to give up and on and that side of things, even if everything else is working, and just do it that way? These are the questions that I've had on my brain for a few years now, and I still don't have an answer to that because I haven't investigated enough. But it does leave me kind of wondering what the future will be for this game. I am happy that I came into it while it still is about.
I
Um,
think, and I think too, maybe just to like maybe help help those people ease the like anxiety of like, yeah, maybe one day we won't be able to run the game anymore. I think if we have the right knowledgeable people like yourself, like Tyler Mallon, of course, has done a ton of work updating the EXE, just like quality of life stuff. If we
Yeah,
have
yeah.
those type of people still in the community, I think they will find a way. Like if a new, the new operating system comes out, okay, what's stopping the game from working? Can we do something to the EXE code to fix that? And then you
Hmm.
just have to get the word out there. Download this EXE. It's the only one that's going to work with Windows 12, etc. Like we
Yeah,
could prolong the life to a degree doing that. But yeah,
and
eventually
it
at some
and
point it could become difficult.
wit. Yeah. And it's part of the reason why I archive so much of this stuff. I've got so much stuff backed up on this game. Some that I really don't even want anymore, for that matter. But uh, yeah, I mean, even on that point, it's like, even if we could only do the offline component of it, I'd rather have that available and just do offline racing rather than it be completely burned down to the ground. So,
Hmm.
let me go ahead and answer your original question. Why am I still on NR and why have I not switched over to iRacing? Few simple things. Number one is I'm very confused on the licensing system or the point system in regards to ranking up, so to speak. Um, I really don't get the math behind it or what I'm supposed to do. If if the game had like clear objectives and said like try to get through this race that you're about to enter with a bunch of randos and try to have we will give you 5 incidents where you hit the wall or whatever, and you'll be fine. And please finish in this position or higher, and you'll be able to push forward. I think the uncertainty of that is part of it. The second piece of it is that it more so has to deal with the cost of everything. You have a $13 to $15 monthly membership, which on its face is not that bad, I will say. But I know for myself that I have purchased iRacing a few times over. I will play it for a weekend, life gets in the way, and by the end of it, you've only probably spent like 3 out of that $15 of time, and you still had to pay the full bill. So to
Hmm.
me, it's like the amount of time that I put in is what I'm expecting to get out. And if I'm not meeting that quota or exceeding that quota, I'm losing money on that transaction. Like in terms of time and money, how that all works, you end up the loser in that situation. Third piece of it is that um, not with all cars, and this actually does blend into a second point, which does deal with cost. Not all cars, but some cars, because you're locked to cockpit view, I feel incredibly claustrophobic. And I'm not someone who generally has claustrophobia, but something about the virtual cockpit and being smushed into that, even if I could figure out my frame of view and everything like that, and all of those little pieces, there is still something that feels incredibly crushing being stuck solely in cockpit camera.
Can
When
I
I do, and
I,
yeah, go ahead, go
I just
ahead.
want to interject here. I just remembered a really funny thing I saw. So this was a while ago. This is probably like 2019, 2020. You were running an
Oh no.
iRacing truck race at
Yep,
Talladega, and you were
yep,
using the VR headset.
yep,
And I just remember watching you turn your head and look as if you were merging on the interstate, and then you
yep,
crashed. And I
yep.
was like, oh my God, that was crazy. That was like the funniest thing I've ever seen. I just
See,
randomly popped in my head while you were
you
talking
you
about the
asked me
cockpit.
you asked me about the embarrassing NOS stuff. That is the most embarrassing thing I've done in iRacing.
Yeah, man, that was
Yeah,
like I remember
yeah. That
just seeing like I'm surprised the game even let you turn all the way back. Like it was like
I
a full 120-degree
V
head turn.
VR headset and a chair that is just an office chair, and I could turn my head like an owl's. Just yeah, and I still couldn't see through the roll bars or anything else like that, and ended up turning myself and killing a bunch of people in the process. So, yay!
But back to the
Ah,
question.
no, that's fine. Nah, I'm not surprised that got brought up. Being stuck inside of cockpit cam. So when I do NR nowadays, and this was actually one of the many suggestions I was given. I run roof cam nowadays
Hmm.
exclusively. I
Same.
used to run far chase or at least the close bumper chase camera. And the problem with that is that what people had told me was A, your reaction time is going to be slow when you turn, and B, uh, if you're that close up, you kind of can't see through the car and see what's going on ahead of you. But if you move to the roof cam, you're like sitting right over your tires, so you can see equally to the left and to the right of you and in front of you how much space you have. But you unfortunately do lose a little bit of that peripheral vision around you when doing so.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're more centered up on top of the tires. Your reaction time is faster because it has to render effectively less. Being stuck inside of a cockpit that, because of how these cars are structured, can be very open and airy, like a prototype or like an Indy car, or feel like a mechanical metal steel cage like the next gen car, and you still have that limitation of how much you can move your head around to be able to see what you're used to seeing but now can no longer see. I just don't like that. It's something about it just messes with my mind, and I'm not used to it, and it doesn't feel comfortable to me. Um, the other piece is, or maybe it's the fourth, uh, on its face, I think the biggest problem that I have with it is because it seems like if you want to do like a traditional league, you have to have some type of payment involved there. Like some type of financial transaction has to take place of something.
Mm.
Because that IMRC iRacing race, I think Shane did have to pay or something like that for a server. So some type of money is coming out of there. But more than anything, because you're racing against random people, you lose out on all of those friends that could give you advice like you can in NR, who are willing to help and explain things to you when it's Jimmy Jack from Mississippi or so who's 12 years old and he's just dumping your shit every single chance that he gets. Um, and I'll even say this: I can't remember the last time I played iRacing, but I know that I think it's the Sportsman division, like those old 80s ish cars. They're like tiny, tiny vehicles. They were running at Charlotte, and I was having a blast there. But when you see those open lobbies and rookie lobbies and everything like that, you think Arca is bad. Arca
Oh
looks like the
yeah.
Cup Series, and it's just such a waste of time. Why am I going to spend an hour practicing, 5 minutes qualifying, and try and figure out how I'm supposed to get around here with such a different feeling car and game just to get junked on lap 2 and never even have a chance? And especially because of the fact that those lower series don't have cautions or so, there's no reset. You are stuck 16th position, and then you're just waiting for other guys to DNF. And okay, maybe you walk out of there 7th, but oh yeah, now you've got all these incident points stacked up against you, and now you've either gone back or you stayed the same way you are. So I I admit that I am very ignorant on how this whole system works in terms of licensing and whatnot, but it just, to me, I don't have enough time to be able to get my money's worth out of it. And I'll add into the fact that the cars and tracks individually are expensive too. So you're paying more money there, which compounds the original issue of $15 a month. Well, if I'm not using that $15, then what did I get out of it? Um, yeah, it's too open of an environment is my best way to describe it. It's too broad. It's too easy to get into, but there's not enough safeguards or community in place that makes it feel very welcoming. Um, if
Right.
you or someone else, like someone that I'd known for a long time now, told me like, "Hey, you took this corner wrong and you ran into me." Okay, I have a history with you. We can both look at that and we can be able to figure this out together. But in iRacing, okay, Jimmy Jack just now went on a 4-letter salad of expletives against me, didn't give me any like constructive criticism, and we both have a junk car and we're both unhappy. Like,
Yeah, it's just
yeah,
straight toxicity.
yeah,
You don't have
yeah,
that, oh, like you did this. It's just straight up, you're a fucking asshole. You fucking wrecked
yeah,
me.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's all it is.
yeah. If iRacing had something more akin to like what we do in the NR community in private leagues and everything like that, and it also gave you the reward of being able to rank up, I would be much more willing to go into that environment. But at this time, that does not exist, which is why, frankly, I'm more excited about NASCAR 25 coming out, especially provided that gets a PC release because I don't have any of the consoles. My focus is that if NR goes under, my focus is then the iRacing console NASCAR game. That's it. I don't
Mm-hmm.
really want to get into the true iRacing setup of it. And unless iRacing can make changes or that there's enough people that can help me figure out what this path is and constructively help me get there, it's not worth pursuing.
Yeah, yeah, I totally get it. The cockpit thing, I especially get. There's a few mods or times where I'll tinker around and I'll switch the cockpit. Like I didn't do it Tuesday for Maverick, but if I have like a 2 or 3 second lead on an oval, if there's like a small field, right, so there might not be much going around, I'll switch the cockpit just to see it because I've learned that you kind of make a triangle with like the dashboard, a section of the front windshield, and the wall, and
Hmm.
like you can get that triangle to a certain size, and that's like how close you get to the wall. So I remembered that from iRacing too. Like that's how you do it in iRacing. Like you have to make like a triangle, but getting comfortable with that is a whole nother story. So like roof camera, I have the program where you can edit the roof camera around, so I pretty much run the same height centered roof camera on any given mod. I might have to move it forward or back, or I might even have to raise it up a little bit more. But I've got a roof camera system that I'm used to where like I can go to any track, any mod, and like I know how much like room I have from visual. So like I'm comfortable with that. When I did run iRacing a bit 2018, 2019, I did prefer the open wheel cars just because you can see more. Like
Yes.
I can see my front tires, so like I know how close I'm going to be to the wall or the grass, etc. So I was more comfortable running those than I was running the actual stock cars on iRacing just because you can see more. And so
Oh,
in NNR, when you have roof camera, the only real blind spot you have is from about center of the roof back to about where your quarter panel starts. Because if like someone, like you have your mirror, right? But if someone goes to your inside, like there's like the further down they are to your inside or outside, like that's where you start to get a bit of a blind spot coming off a corner. But I mean, that's
yeah.
really the only struggle of roof camera.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Um, I mean, I know for myself that, and what has typically happened is that when I run it on, I'll have the mirror on, but I will not have the internals on.
Right. Yeah, me neither.
So, so you kind of have to expect as to where people are going, and it's part of the reason why I've cut someone off and either wrecked myself or wrecked someone else. Um, I don't know exactly if it's just something with how my brain processes things, but I know that even in a passenger vehicle for that matter, if I just got out of my regular car and swapped into someone else's car and it, feels different, it maybe is a bigger vehicle. The same thing kind of goes with iRacing. I have, because you're locked in that cockpit cam, I have no idea exactly how much room I've got between the passenger door and the wall. So I will give up way too much space where I'm running an ineffective line, but my brain is thinking, you're as close to that backstretch wall as you can be. Like you're doing it right. But in reality, you're giving up however many inches or so that you actually need to run an effective line. And the problem is you have no way to work yourself back out of it because you're locked to that cockpit cam.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, one last NR related type question, then we'll get to our exit topic, unless you have any other stories you'd like to tell. But I'll ask this question first. How many people have you met in real life from the NR community, and if you have any special interactions, please say so.
So, I was going to meet a lot of extra people last year. Unfortunately, I got into a car wreck like 2 to 3 days before Thanksgiving, and by December, my car was still not in operational duty to be able to make such a trip. Um, I've actually met Will Goss like 3 times before. I met him for the very first time in 2019 at Kentucky Speedway. Uh, the way that whole weekend ended up going was what effectively ended up being the last true fan weekend at Kentucky. My two youngest brothers, they never got to go to the race before we lost our season tickets. Um, I think the last season ticket race that we went to was in 2005 for the Truck Series, I think. So they didn't get to go in 2006, '07, so on and so forth. So the Busch Series weekend, or the Busch Series event, I took myself, my brother Grant, and my brother Kyle. All three of us went to Kentucky and went to go enjoy the Xfinity race. And I got special passes from, I think, someone at BJ McLeod's team that allowed us to walk the garage area. So we actually sat on pit lane and watched the Xfinity race. In turn, as a thank you to my dad for all the years that he took us to Kentucky, brought the grill, brought food, did everything for us. I was like, hey, you, me, let's go to Kentucky on Sunday and go see the Cup Series race as a thank you for, taking me out here. The only thing that I asked him to do was like, can you either drive us there or drive us back? Just do a driver swap, either before the race or after the race. And he was fine with that. Goss had told me that he was going to go to that race. So I was like, okay, I'm already taking my brothers to this event. This gives me more incentive, especially to go to this cup event. I'll get to meet you. And also still the aspect of me and my dad. Thank you. So I got to meet Goss. I met Matt Wisher and Tyler Claybaugh as well, but I'm not the most familiar with them. I know that Matt does photography and he does a good job at it. But I met Will. Had a good time. Gave him a big hug when I saw him and lifted him like 5 inches off the ground or so. I'm a hugger, regardless of the person. Um, and then the last couple of times, minus last year, as I was saying earlier, his birthday is in December, and Goss, this is actually funny as to how the whole NR community has worked out. Goss, myself, John Gons, and Zach Buchanan, all are Ohio natives. Some of us still live here, some of us don't. I know that Goss still lives in Ohio, as I do. But Goss is literally only like 3 to 4 hours away from me. So I went and celebrated his birthday with him, which was go-karting. So I went to up north, like the Cleveland-ish area,
Oh
went
God,
out,
Cleveland.
go-karted with him. Yeah, Cleveland town, everyone. Um, Went up, met with him, celebrated his birthday, went go-kart racing with him and some of his like, local real life friends and everything like that, and just had a blast. I've done that twice now, and I missed out on last year. And what sucked about that was I think Tristan Allen, Eric Rodriguez, and I think Cole Eastwood all may have gone to celebrate Will's birthday, and I couldn't go because my car was damaged. So, uh, but yeah, so officially I've only met Will and met him multiple times over. Um, and I will say I really would like to meet Andrew Miller. I know that you've done broadcasting with him as I have, but Andrew's such a sweet, cool guy that like I'd be cool to just kind of hang out with him for a day.
Yeah, Andrew was, I don't know if you heard, but Andrew was in my area like 2 months ago. So I got to meet him in person, him and his
Yeah,
partner. So that was fun. We went to Buffalo Wild Wings, had a good time.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I only make a joke about Cleveland because I work in Rhode Island, and
Okay.
my company's like national company. We have like there's like warehouse buildings and stuff like all across the country, and we deal with Cleveland a lot. Cleveland sends us a lot of our parts. I'm the receiver, so I always have to count stuff when it comes in, and all I'll say is they can't count to save their lives. And they are a headache for me, so that is why I say, "Oh God, Cleveland." Nothing to do with the Browns or anything. Just, oh yeah, they
Yeah.
are a headache for me every week. It seems. Well, not really too much recently, but yeah. So that's why I joke and jest about Cleveland. Okay, so exit topic.
Hmm.
Music, movies, TV shows, anything not related to racing that you're into that people may or may not know about.
Well, there is one thing that I will mention that is not related. It is related to racing, but not exactly also racing. One thing that I am big on is the Victory Junction Gang Camp. I'm sure most people who follow NASCAR know what it is, but it's the camp that the Petty set up after Adam Petty had died, and is now going on 21 years strong of campers. Um, and I got to go back in 2009 and 2010. I've made some really, really good friends. I have a friend in Florida with cerebral palsy. I have a friend in Maryland who has some physical limitations or so. But just because of that camp, because of all of that existing, um, I really have met some great people there. And luckily, through that, my buddy from Maryland and I, as well as my girlfriend, we're all going to be going to Charlotte Motor Speedway in like less than 2 weeks to go to the Coca-Cola 600. So, all thanks to Victory Junction and just the awesomeness that they are. I've had some very great pen pals who have been great friends to me for 15 plus years now. Um, and yeah, through all of that, like it's made my life more interesting and more fun, giving me more opportunities to go out and do things. Um, talk about music. Big into Weird Al Yankovic. I think it's the spice of weird life that just makes the world a little bit more of a brighter place. Uh, gonna be going to see him in July for the third time, I believe. Um, I got into Tame Impala a few years ago. I really like their stuff. Um, Very relaxing, all in all. Uh, I've recently kind of gotten into Kendrick Lamar and Thundercat. I think that the music that they've made is just it sounds really good, and I love the grouping of it. And more than anything, the stories that can be written in lyrics is really interesting. Um, Movies. Not a big movie person, all in all. I like the Monty Python films, so Monty Python and the Holy Grail, Life of Brian, The Meaning of Life. Um, I like the Naked Gun movies. I need to sit down and watch Airplane. I like Office Space. TV shows. I don't really watch a lot of TV. I know that I was on a string of watching like Black Mirror on Netflix for a while and just kind of fell out of interest in that, or couldn't afford Netflix anymore. I was big into Avatar: The Last Airbender and that whole franchise, but I've kind of fallen out of practice on it since then.
Mm.
Um, I don't exactly know where they're gonna go with it. I'm interested, but it's also been so long since that series started, so don't know.
Hmm.
Uh, the only seasons of SpongeBob, like these are like baby's basic answers to television. Don't
Yeah.
watch a lot of television, and if it is, it's either something that I already have an association with, or um, usually I'll just watch like YouTube videos on my own. I will say Why Women Kill, that show that my girlfriend introduced me to. I really like that. And even though that I have no idea who all the characters are and I've had problems keeping up with the script, there's something about Bridgerton that kind of sucks me in a little bit, even though that is not my type of show whatsoever. Uh, Oh, I also like Cowboy Bebop. I've kind of gotten into anime in the last few years, but that still is very new to me.
Gotcha. Yeah, right on. Yeah, I like I never watch anything anymore myself, but I was big on like anime and TV shows, movies, and all that growing up. I just, you know, I'm always doing something else, it seems like. So I'm never really sitting down to give myself time to watch anything. But I do
Yeah.
have like a list of movies that I need to like watch, and the list just kind of gets bigger and bigger here and there, and I'm never really taking anything off of it.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
not fun, but
I find with me that I feel that I need to be like actively engaged in something with the rest of my body. I find it a little hard to sit down and be passive and enjoy something. With video games, you kind of get that aspect anyway. Um, And really, to me, like I do photography when the weather is good and everything like that. I'd kind of rather be doing something along the lines of that versus sitting down and passively like binging a Netflix or something like that. And yeah, watching enough shows in a row, like trying to binge a series, eventually I just lose plot points and details, and it's like, well, now I have to go back and rewatch it again, and that means more time.
yeah, that's like there's a show called Manifest, and it was
Hmm.
on NBC for its first 2 3 seasons. I think it was the first 3 seasons, and they were canceling it after the third season, even though it was such a good show. And Netflix like picked it up, and people were just watching and watching it. People would actually just leave it on to make it look like they were watching it, which
Hmm.
they later patched that. But so Netflix at first wasn't going to take the show up, but then they did. So then they were supposed to have 2 or 3 more seasons, but so then they condensed that into one final season, and I just like totally forgot it was happening, and it went up on Netflix I think like 2 3 years ago now, and I don't have a Netflix, so like for one I would have to get a Netflix, but then for two, it's been so long I would have to rewatch the first 3 seasons and then watch
Yeah.
the fourth season, and it's just like, man, like I don't have the time to binge that. That's like
It's
it's a 50-minute episode TV show. Like I ain't got time for that. So like
it's
I'm
the same principle as
uh,
I was talking earlier about iRacing. It's just now applied to movies or TV shows.
right, yeah, it's just like I want to, but like I don't want to spend like what would it would effectively take me like a month of just getting home from work and watching that show to like go through it, and it's like, yeah, I just don't really even want to commit to that. So there's a few shows that have seasons currently that I watch when they come out, and then when they're not coming out, then it's like, oh hey, I have an hour of free time now. Like I don't look at it. I enjoy it when I watch it, but I also look at it as like, well, that's an hour I have to spend doing something else. So
Yeah. It's an obligation of time and energy towards something rather than options.
yeah. which is kind of the same with NR, but I do love NR, so I don't really
Yeah, yeah.
I like I'm addicted. I'm stuck to it. So
And
um
if you're having a bad race in NI, you can easily just start and park it if you really are not enjoying it.
yeah, see, I don't want to get in the habit of doing that. Like I'm always the type of like my race ends when the car's junk, or if it's junk and I'm not racing for the championship. So
Yeah,
that's like the
yeah.
only time I'll retire. Like I said for Fast Texas, like I just kept it out there in third gear to just see what might have happened. Like I didn't want to just park it. So, but yeah, um that pretty much does it for me. So I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to cover.
No, nothing really major. I just know that for the timing of everything, so May is Cystic Fibrosis Awareness Month. I'm just kind of trying to promote the foundation more than anything.
Oh yeah,
May is
I
Cystic
didn't
Fibro. Yeah,
I wasn't sure
go
if you
ahead.
were gonna be comfortable talking about that or not, but I know you have like some things you deal with, so if you wanted to talk about that, feel
Yeah,
free.
yeah. So on that end, yeah, I don't have one problem with it, whatever. Yeah. So I'm 30. I have cystic fibrosis. So even though that I've actually been pretty good about not coughing into the microphone tonight, there are nights where that is not the case. But yeah, cystic fibrosis is a congenital disease. You can't catch it or anything like that. Mainly affects the lungs, but also affects the pancreas. Can affect the liver. Uh, Biggest target area is lungs and everything like that. Everyone has mucus in their lungs, but mine is more of the consistency of honey, which leads to lung infections and lung exacerbations and whatnot. So kind of because of all of that, I mean, I'm generally pretty healthy, but it is a tough and also very expensive disease to manage with and deal with. Um, but May is Cystic Fibrosis Awareness Month, so I would appreciate it. And I've been trying to promote the foundation for the most part during this month. Um, but yeah, so pretty happy with life overall, even despite that. In certain ways, I think it's made me more empathetic and to a statue, I kind of see it as a blessing, not a curse, just because it allows me to have a wider view of the world versus, oh, I'm 30 and I'm indestructible and I'm gonna do whatever.
Yeah.
No, like there's only so much time that we have on this earth, and to me, I want to enjoy it to the fullest, make as many memories as I can, and moreover be
There's the coffee.
there's the cough. Be as loving and supportive to those around me, and make them feel loved and worthy and everything like that. Uh, because not everyone has that in this life, sadly enough.
Mm.
So, yeah, like looking from 40 feet away, I see the world very differently. That despite all the harder, more in focus medical issues, from 40 feet away, it's something that I don't look at as a negative thing. And knowing more for myself that, you know, even if they found the cure for CF as an example, it would not be administered to me. It wouldn't be administered to anyone easily with who is already suffering from the disease. But that does also bring the promise that the next generation would be able to be cured of it before they are born. And to me, that's a more even that even though that is a somber outlook for my own life, I'm fine with that if it means that others don't have to suffer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was looking into it, looking at it a little bit, because I think I remember you saying in the past that you suffer from this, um, that typically people with your condition only get into maybe their 50s, but there are people who have made it 60s, 70s. So like
Yeah,
there's
the
still a lot of life left for you, of course. You know.
yes, yes, the medical advancements have been so amazing that probably about 10 years ago, the life expectancy was around 38. So by those metrics, if it was as hard coded as it would seem, he went here as being average. If the answer was 38 flat, well, I've only got 8 more years to go. But now the life expectancy has arisen to about 56 years of age. And even from my perspective, my thought is like whether it's cystic fibrosis or something else, if I can make it to 75, I'm like, okay, that's good. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily need to make it significantly further than that. 80 is probably the highest bar it would go, but it's like at that point, you've done enough with your life. Hopefully, you're cognitively like still rather well there together, and your body isn't like giving out on you. Yeah, 75 to 80, I'd be happy to live that long. That's good.
Yeah.
That works.
I would say the same for me. I don't really have anything right now. I might have a like heart condition down the line because of my grandmother on my mother's side has like a pacemaker, and my
Yeah.
grandfather on my mother's side had a double bypass surgery a couple years ago. But like they're both into their 80s, so if I'm just lucky off of like taking care of myself generally, and I have like the genes that I can probably make it into my 80s, but I don't necessarily want to be my grandfather and have to take 10 different pills every day. Like I'm
Yeah.
sure I would get used to it, but it just doesn't sound like fun at first. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much you have to do with your condition, but if you want to go into it a little bit, and or just explain like why the life expectancy is the way it is for that disease. Like
So,
what happens that, keeps the life expectancy where it is versus now what has changed and has let that be longer.
so I think that the biggest terminating aspect of it is mainly the lung damage that happens. So the thing that they measure is an FEV1 or full volume capacity. Effectively, it's how much air you can be able to suck into your lungs, and then how much you can expel from your lungs until completely empty. If you are healthy and you're doing your regimen of treatments and everything like that, and you don't get sick too often, uh, it's like, I mean, it effectively is like working out a muscle. Um, if you were bench pressing like 120 pounds or so, and then you just stop taking care of yourself, and then you can only bench press 50 or so, that's kind of how this sort of works in a certain extent, as best of an apt comparison I can make. So just because of over time with age, over time with lung infections, over time with just general damage to the lungs, over time with bacteria getting in the lungs, uh, that muscle, quote unquote muscle, just kind of breaks down and it gets harder and harder to do things. If your lung function effectively drops to like 30% on your FEV1 or lower, that is when they start to consider you for a double lung transplant. Which the benefit is that you then don't necessarily have to do all the breathing treatment regimen, or not as much at least, but then you also have to take anti-rejection meds for the rest of your life to hopefully keep your body from rejecting those new set of lungs. You still have everything else that makes up of you that is still damaged and everything like that. And you still also have no idea. You might take the anti-rejection medications and your body will still just reject them. Plus, you have the whole entire aspect of, oh, I'm now on the donor list and I need a set of lungs. Well, who knows how long that may take for you to get your number called, or who
Hmm.
knows the strength of the organs that they're about to put into you. Um, I've been lucky that I've been, for the most part, healthy. I've kind of fallen off a little bit in the last few years, but I'm trying to do better and be better. Effectively, at least for my day, I have to do a 30-minute regimen of breathing treatment, so inhaling albuterol sulfate and a couple of other inhaled medications. Do something for chest compressions to be able to shake up all the mucus and everything like that and cough that out. Living in Ohio does not help either because the allergies here are freaking terrible. So I will get my biggest issue is I get like sinus drainage, sinus infection, stuff like that. Um, which also then like usually mucus just ends up draining into my chest, which gets me sick again.
Ugh.
So that's yeah. It's all cylindrical. Um, I take a lot of medication overall. Some of the medication that has come out, the biggest one being Trikafta, is a modulator for the cystic fibrosis membrane. Effectively, the defect in the cystic fibrosis membrane is the inability or difficulty with passing salt and water through the cells, which causes a lot of that thicker mucus buildup and everything. This medication that was developed like around the middle to late of like around 2013, I want to say, like late high school for me. This medication that when taken, it retroactively kind of fixes that or at least repairs it a little bit so long as you're taking the medication. The biggest challenge is a lot of these medications are very, very, very expensive. I think that Trikafta that I mentioned, I once crunched the numbers and it's like $4,000 for a 30-day supply without medical insurance. It's ripplingly expensive. But the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation has made a lot of positive strides over my lifetime that they've managed to figure out a lot of different things in terms of better treatment, better care, better methods, um, better tracking for cystic fibrosis. And the benefit is too, more than anything, is because they can now kind of track this stuff out and test for this stuff in vitro, or even doing a genetics test even before a husband and a wife decide to get a baby together. They can be able to check for all of this stuff. The average life expectancy for CF patients, like back at the beginning of the 20th century, was literally in the teens. If not, they died in infancy. Um, the growth and change that has gone on from, I think some of the biggest growths were made like back in the 1950s. Effectively 70 to 80 years now, they've made just tremendous growth. The life expectancy and the quality of life has gotten so much better for cystic fibrosis patients around the world that it's rather amazing. So to sum it all up, May is Cystic Fibrosis Awareness Month. They certainly could use all the money that they could get to try and help continue on with more research and everything like that. And yeah, I try to advocate for it every May, or run a themed car or run a themed sponsor on most of the NR cars that I run during the month of May. Just haven't been, I've been busy with a lot of other things, but still felt the need to get the word out.
Right on. And now, do you deal with anything else? I might be misremembering, but I feel like I remember one time we were racing, and you said something about like your something with your ankles. I could be mistaken, but I feel like you were
Um,
saying something to do with like movement range and ankles that I'm like I
I
said, I might be misremembering.
uh, I think I maybe complained that my ankle and knee were bothering me. I'm arthritic, so
Okay.
uh, arthritis is sometimes a thing. Post-nasal drip is definitely a thing. Diabetes, like effectively they figured out that a lot of people are developing diabetes in the cystic fibrosis community. which effectively the reason why it is that the pancreas is scarred and damaged from all the mucus and everything like that. That we already have an issue with not being able to digest food and take in the proper nutrients from food anyway. That it's now, we also figured out that your pancreas is damaged and you're not secreting insulin or enough insulin to be able
Oh,
to manage your blood sugar. So yeah, arthritis, uh, joint inflammation. I know some people have had issues with like clubbing in their fingers. Thankfully, I've never had that. Uh, just getting sick as hell during cold and flu season. Um, certain, I will censor as much as I can in my verbiage here. Let's just simply say the stuff that was going on with 2020 was definitely a dangerous time for our community. But I will even say for myself, considering that we have to wear coverings anyway when we go into the hospital for our routine maintenance, I didn't really understand why a lot of people had a problem with them in the first place. Like, this is our regular life and this is what we're expected to do.
mm-hmm.
We're just now not wearing it just in clinic. We're wearing it when we go to the grocery store. So, frankly, I'm surprised as shit that I didn't catch the 2020 disease
Mm-hmm.
and have avoided it the entire time. But that was definitely a scary thing because they weren't saying that it did attack the lungs pretty hard. So, what
Yeah.
exactly did that? What did that mean potentially for someone in this community that could have gotten it?
Right. That was
Was
it
it an
was
instant death sentence?
it was dangerous for people like yourself that already had other stuff they were dealing with. It wasn't
Yeah,
really dangerous to the healthy person, but the healthy person still needed to do what they could to protect
yeah,
those that were more at risk.
yeah.
We can
Our
pretty much,
immune system is already damaged from the get go. Like, yeah, we're gonna be more susceptible to like viruses and flus and everything else like that. So, yeah, yeah. Definitely an interesting and scary, scary time.
yeah. Well, I'm happy to say, I'm glad that so many medical improvements have been made over the years, like the years like even before we were here.
Yeah,
Um, so that allowed us to have this conversation. If they didn't make all those improvements, who might not be here right now. So I
right.
really appreciate the medical community for all the improvements they do in extending our life expectancies across the board for all walks of life.
Yeah.
um but so yeah, my grandmother has some crazy arthritis right now where she can hardly stand because she has some
Hmm.
arthritis in her ankles. So totally get all of that. Well, so that pretty much does it for our episode, Blake. This will be the first one over 3 hours. If you've got anybody you'd like to shout out, the floor is yours.
No major shout outs, just general. First of all, thanks for letting me come on to the episode. I definitely wanted to hash out things with you and thought it would make for good content more than anything. But thank you again. And yeah, just have a general appreciation and thankfulness for the friends I've made here in the community and just the general people that I know in my life. You know, life has not been perfect for me in many different ways. And I've certainly had a lot of challenges in there and dealt with a lot of different things. But uh, I think just the general feeling is that despite all that has gone on, the world can still be a very beautiful place with beautiful people in it. And if you find something like that, hold on to it, appreciate it, and have that be something to enjoy in this life. It can be tough, but the good people that you surround yourself with can make it so much better.
Right on. So thanks again for coming on here, Blake. It was good talk. I mean, I think I had a ton of fun with this episode. I'm sure people enjoy listening to it. So that'll do it for this episode of Who's That Driver. This was episode 8. I'm your host, Zach Rogers, joined today by Blake Warren, and I will see you guys for episode 9 next time out.